Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
You can practically see it from here.
What?
Podcast.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, right? Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
great.
This
It's
movie
a
doesn't have
quotable
dialogue.
movie.
Yeah.
You should have just done a plane. Just made a plane noise. Ben and I were talking about
Podcast.
how Nolan was just obviously when he's pitching the movie, he's just like, oh no!
I love the idea of Nolan coming in his crisp suit, right? Hair slicked back. You know, just give me a moment to sit up here. And then took out his shoebox, placed all his miniature tin airplanes on the floor.
That he had like personally built in his garage.
Right. Yeah. Took a deep breath and then went. And Chris here is a check for $200 million.
20 against 20%? Is that's good?
Here is a blank check with Griffin and David.
If only they had said that to him.
This is the name of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It is called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David Sims.
We're the two friends as a hashtag. It's a competitive advantage. No other podcast has that going for it. We do. Here's another thing about us, connoisseurs of context.
You're all over the place.
I'm trying to do sensory overload,
Oh,
a la
sure.
Dunkirk. I'm trying to fucking blitz your brain. This podcast is about filmographies. Filmmakers who have had massive success early on in their career and they're given a series of blank checks. Sometimes those checks clear.
Sure.
Sometimes they clear.
Yep.
Sometimes they bounce, baby.
Not this time.
Not this time. This time it's clearing.
For sure.
And it's a real blank check of a movie.
It is, in a weird way, even though it's a war movie.
Yeah.
The hoariest of genres.
Yes. This is the last film. Sad
Until
emoji.
his next film.
Well, but of this miniseries.
Yeah.
At that point, it'll be a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a throwback Thursday
Exactly.
when we cover another
Throwback Sunday.
another Nolan, because we've been talking about the films of Christopher Nolan. It's a miniseries called The Pod Nightcast.
Podkirk.
It's called Podkirk.
Mm-hmm.
This is Podkirk. We're talking about the movie Dunkirk.
Yeah. Which came out, a month and a half ago now? Not even. A month ago.
Yeah,
a little more than a month ago.
6 weeks ago. It came out middle
of July.
Mid-July.
That sweet spot in July.
Yeah,
that he loves so much.
we're tipping into September right now.
Yeah.
And it's still going strong at the box office. We'd said in our Interstellar episode that Dunkirk wasn't coming anywhere close to Interstellar's box office. I think it's going to pass it in the next week or so.
Yeah, it's doing a great job.
It's doing a great job.
It's also been the worst month for movies. After, I think, an okay summer, the last few weeks have been dead.
Excuse me, have you not seen Leap?
I have not seen
Birth
Leap.
of the Dragon? Have you not?
Is it Leap, Birth of the Dragon?
Yep.
Yep.
It's one movie. It's a mashup. Weinstein cannot afford to release movies anymore, so he's smuggling movies inside of other movies.
Tulip Fever?
Yes.
We are only days away today, 2 days away from the release of Tulip Fever. Have you seen Tulip Fever, honored guest?
I have not.
You want to
No.
introduce our guest?
Sure. He's my favorite critic to read about.
Hey,
Hi.
read about. You don't like reading his work. You like reading other people.
Read his writing about Christopher Nolan. I wanted him on this podcast, and I'm sorry we couldn't get you on Interstellar, but scheduling was too crazy for Interstellar. Just because I feel like you're the biggest Interstellar fan in the world. If I'm a big Interstellar fan,
I'm a very big Interstellar fan. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan.
If you want to
People
do
are
an
very
installment of Tars Talk, we can put aside a little time in this episode for some Tars Talk, our regular segment.
oh yeah, we're just going to do that every week now. No, David Rees makes it clear he actually likes Case more than Tars on that episode.
That makes sense. I mean, David Rees is a real case.
Yeah, he's critic for the Village Voice.
which
Bilge
still
Ebiri.
exists. Yes.
Still exists.
Still exists.
It's still here in online form only, sadly. But welcome.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Fan of the podcast. Huge
Fan of the podcast. I'm pleased to report that I am actually an hour into this podcast already, while you guys are at the beginning.
You are at a different temporality than us. And Ben right now is a week ago.
Yeah, he always is though. That's not
Yeah,
unusual.
producer Ben, the Ben Deucer, the poet laureate, the Haas, our finest film critic, Dirt Bike Benny, Soaking Wet Benny, the Fart Master, the Meat Lover, the Fart Master, the Fart Detective, the Fuck Master. He's not Professor Crispy. He is the Peeper.
Yeah.
He's graduated to certain titles over the course of different miniseries, such as Producer Ben Kenobi, Kylo Ben, Ben Sate, Ben Night Shyamalan, Say Bennything, Aliens with $, Warhaz, and announcing it here,
Sure.
Purdue or Bane.
Purdue or Bane. That's what you settled on.
Purdue or Bane.
Not Ben Kirk.
Ben Kirk's good.
Not yet. I mean, look, when he catches up with us, he can reckon with it.
I'd visit the French town of Benkirk, get a croissant. Yeah, Dunkirk. Hi guys.
Hey,
everybody. I'm settling in.
So this this movie, Nolan makes Interstellar.
Sure.
Interstellar does well, but still, we talked about was kind of viewed as a disappointment. I think just in the light of how huge
he has a high
his three
bar,
previous movies have been,
right?
And
also how previous sci-fi movies like that had done.
Yes,
right.
Right.
Right,
Gravity the year before wins Best Director and
Yeah.
makes like crazy amounts of money, hand over fist.
Right.
There was sort of this revival of adult sci-fi that's still been going on. It's weird. Like every year now, there's one high-minded adult sci-fi movie.
Well, if you think of Arrival last year, what's this year?
I guess this year Blade Runner's like the closest equivalent, right?
Was Arrival and The Martian the same year, or were they different years?
No,
Different
they're
years.
different years, right? Martian's 2015, Arrival's 2016,
Right. But there's like one kind of like real
Valerian
world
this
hard
year.
science. Oh, Valerian. That's
which
the
everyone
one.
loves.
That's the
Life.
one. Life.
Hey, not a bad movie.
Yeah.
You haven't seen Life?
No,
I had a
hate
great
that director with a passion.
He's
What-
the
what-
Safe House guy?
safe.
The
No one
Safe
is
House
safe. No one is
guy, the
house.
Child 44 guy.
I have
Oh,
not
right.
seen either of those movies.
Awful.
Yeah, but Life, the whole muscle.
Is he the Snabba Cash guy or whatever that
He is the Snabba-Cash
Okay.
guy.
People love that Snabba Cash, right?
I have no idea what you guys are talking about. This
did
is
the
my job.
Snabba-Cash, Easy Money.
Yeah,
right?
he did this movie called Snabba Cash parentheses Easy Money,
Love the title.
which was Dutch.
Is he
No,
Dutch?
no,
he's
he's,
Daniel Espinosa is his name, isn't it?
He's Scandinavian. I think
He's
he's
Scandinavian,
Swedish, right?
because
Or
that's
I-
where
I
like
don't-
Joel
I don't know.
Kinnaman came from.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it
sure.
was
Well,
like a
he's
big
Swedish.
overseas
Yes,
success.
he is Swedish.
And I think they made like 4 of them, and they were always saying they were going to like adapt it with Shia LaBeouf, and then that never happened.
Cash.
Snabba Cash.
Or Zac
Wow.
Efron. At some point, I think Zac
Right,
Efron
right.
was attached to it, right?
He gets floated for a lot of Scandinavian remakes, I suppose.
But Snabba Cash, they were trying to make Snabba Cash happen.
What is? I guess there hasn't been a big sci-fi movie this year yet. I guess Blade Runner.
I guess that's the
But
one,
that-
right?
that's-
But it's
that's a
weird
little-
because it's a sequel.
But I think we're thinking more like space movies, right? And
right. Because I feel like
space
it's that
movies.
run of like...
Which Life was definitely trying to position itself as one of those.
Also,
Yeah.
Passengers definitely thought they were going to have that last year.
Oh,
And then
sure.
Arrival came in and had an interesting strategy, which was to be a good movie.
Mm.
That was their strategy, was what if good? No, but Arrival, Gravity, Interstellar, The Martian. I feel like there's one more. I feel like every year between like September
Yeah,
and
the
December,
fall.
there's been one kind of like, this is a realistic look at space.
Yeah.
They're spinning.
There's a lot of spinning.
Space has got spinning now.
Space. Now with more spinning. I'm not seeing anything. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're lacking one this
Whatever.
year. Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's
There
hard
you
sci-fi.
go.
Hard like a Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But I think the expectations were very high, and it's sort of like, has grown since then. It wasn't like a total flop, but it was kind of like, what does he do now?
Sure.
What does he do now? Batman's done.
You're not doing Batman.
Right. And there were I feel like rumors for a while circulating things, but he keeps a tight lid on it.
I guess so.
And
There's
then-
always his Howard
He
Hughes.
plays it
movie.
close to the chest.
Right. Very close to the chest.
Right? Like, what's he going to make now, for example?
That's the thing that happens after every Nolan movie where I
Right.
think to myself, well, what the hell does he do to kind of...
Yeah, impress people again.
Yeah, because you have a lot of big directors who are like, well, I'm going to go make a small movie now.
Sure.
And usually it's because they've done something bloated and
Right.
obscene and annoying. Like, Michael Bay or somebody.
Yes.
But with Nolan, you don't necessarily... I mean, I'll watch whatever he does,
I'd watch
but you
a
don't
smaller
necessarily hear him
movie.
say, I'm going to make a small movie now.
No.
Right.
Well, he's very good about not being an asshole about his brand, I would say, largely.
Agreed. But
in terms
yes.
of where thinking people would care to hear that,
I think
I'd care to hear it.
yes, he's in a very interesting position because, like, as Alex Ross Perry very astutely said in our Insomnia episode, he's one of like 2 or 3 living filmmakers who can like call the shot and force the entire industry to change if he decides to do something
Okay.
in terms of actual filmmaking process, release strategy, what have you, And I think he like takes that responsibility seriously. So while like I would love to see him make a little movie, not because I don't like the big ones, but because it would be interesting to see him go back and forth. I think he's like, I got this power. I got to do big things to try to like advance filmmaking. So it kind of becomes this question of like, I guess what genre is he going to take on next? Like he's weirdly in that sort of position now where it's like, oh, a sci-fi movie. And
He's
then,
talked about making a horror movie. It's hard to imagine him making a horror movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see him producing something, you know. I mean, he produced
Yeah.
Man of Steel.
And Transcendence.
Right. Yep.
Lest we forget.
Gone
Could-
but never forgotten.
Maybe
Yeah.
he'll make another Singularity movie.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him use, because he's done that thing where he, a couple of years ago with the brothers Quay, where he
Yes.
helped
His-
take their
his-
films around and did like a little documentary and
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
did appearances with them. And then right around that same time, he also released a Blu-ray of Zvyagintsev Elena, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And,
right. He's been like paying for like restorations and
Yeah.
stuff.
He's kind
Which
of
is
like,
sort of the
yeah.
Scorsese
Yeah.
like
The film
mode.
foundation
Yeah,
kind
where
of
you're
thing.
like,
Yeah.
you're trying to have some of that stuff.
And also, I think maybe a little bit like Coppola in the
Sure.
70s, right? You
Yeah.
know, there was that period. I mean, because there was that period where Coppola was like indestructible,
Right. And he
until he was
like,
he was-
destroyed,
right,
utterly
loudly
destroyed.
destroyed.
and
Um,
he did like the Napoleon tour and
He
stuff.
did Napoleon.
Right.
He helped get Kurosawa films.
Yeah, right.
Produced and released.
And
I mean,
Lucas did that too. Lucas
Lucas did it.
right,
Tarantino did it, although it
Yeah.
didn't really always work for him. But there was in the 90s too,
Yeah.
where Quentin
Chungking
Tarantino
Express.
presents Chungking Express.
I think the problem was that Weinstein ultimately abused that.
Yeah.
I think he started like turning Tarantino
Are you
into a
saying you
brat.
don't have Tulip Fever?
Someone asked us on Twitter if we were going to do a one-off for Tulip Fever, and my response was, "How can you do a podcast on a movie that doesn't exist?"
Were you haven't seen it?
I
Were
haven't
you
seen it.
invited to the screening that they then called me and said we're not going to have the screening the day of the screening? And I was like, okay.
I think I was.
And they were like,
I think
instead,
so.
we will not be screening the movie. Like it wasn't like they're like we're rescheduling it to this day. It was like so we're not going to have the screening, and instead there won't be screenings of
It's
the
so
film.
weird. I mean, because the film has come out in other places,
And
it's
people
played
have
places.
said like
It's
it's
fine.
bad,
Yeah.
but
Who
like
cares?
it's not like it's
It's
like,
whatever.
right,
Yeah.
horrendous, misshapen. Like it's just like a crappy movie.
No worse than the last movie they made. I mean, there must be some weird contractual thing, or maybe. I mean, there's also. I mean, let's not forget Harvey is known for being vindictive with his film releases.
Sure.
So
Yeah, but he also has this thing where like he had some upfront deal. Let's get into Harvey talk.
Yeah.
He had some deal.
poor Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
makes
hasn't been
Dunkirk
talked
when we
about
talk
much.
about Harvey Weinstein.
He has this deal with Netflix where they like offer him a certain amount of money up front for like 10 releases a year.
Mm.
And some of the movies he didn't want to release started like, oh, I'll put it in one theater so then I can put it on Netflix the next week and like get my money back. Or doing that thing where he like siphoned them off to the Lifetime channel,
Sure.
which he's done with like 2 or 3 of his like long delayed movies. He did that with Grace and Monaco, and he did
Yeah,
it with Sweet
that was
Frances.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
where like suddenly it just quietly airs on Lifetime as a TV movie.
Yeah.
So the Tulip Fever thing's very bizarre because it's like he's used other escape routes to not release a movie.
Right, but this is maybe he has some clause where he has. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that said, he has made me want to see Tulip Fever.
That's
I mean,
the
this
thing.
is kind of
I'll be
amazing
there.
I
reverse
never
psychology.
wanted to see Tulip Fever until now, and now they're advertising it as the sexiest thriller of the year.
Yeah, the movie that Harvey Weinstein doesn't want you to see. That should be the tagline. Did you read about, I think someone tweeted that there was like a SAG screening or like a DGA screening where literally people were in line.
It was
and
a WGA
and
screening.
they came out and were
Oh,
like,
right.
actually,
No,
never
and
mind.
someone put out a paper sign written in ballpoint pen that says, "Sorry, screening canceled. We are showing Annabelle." Which I think you should see the sign because it's so like plain and just sort of like there's no malice to it. It's a sweet little sign that someone drew for the WGA crowd.
But I just love that, like, you're like, man, I can't believe they called me and canceled a screening 2 hours before it started.
It was like 6 hours.
Okay, and those people were like, man, I can't believe they wrote a sign and told us the screening was canceled 30 minutes after the screening was supposed to
They
start.
should have just played Annabelle and been people were like, that was Annabelle. They'd be like, no, that was Tulip Fever.
You didn't catch it? You didn't catch the fever?
Yeah, that was Tulip Fever. Anyway, see you later. Please leave. All right, Dunkirk. So,
Okay,
but
Dunkirk.
this is one of those movies like Inception that he has had boiling for like his whole career. Like he came
Right.
up for the idea. He was like on the beaches in the 90s with his wife and was like, a Dunkirk movie should be done. But I don't
Yeah.
have the money or the skill yet or whatever. And he just sort of had it in his pocket.
Right. But
I
they
feel
play,
like he always has them in his pocket.
they play this movie very close to the chest. He
God damn it.
he doesn't talk about it much. There's very little kind of information circulating around. The couple big actors who were like cast in smaller supporting parts, but then it was like, oh, he's mostly using unknown. Harry Styles is in it.
All I knew was
Shooting
that Harry
mostly on
Styles was in
IMAX
it. I didn't
cameras.
know like Rylance or Branagh were in it until I saw the trailer. Like I knew very little. I just knew he was making a Dunkirk movie. I never try because he hides it all away anyway.
Sure.
I never really try to sort of dig in.
But everyone kind of assumes like, okay, Christopher Nolan's doing a war movie. He's going to go fucking huge. He's going to make this
He's going to make The Longest Day.
bombastic.
Yeah, right.
Like, is it going to be 2 parts? Like, what kind of epic is he going to build? And then he releases this weird 90-minute, like, kind of like experimental exercise. Almost.
It's 105 minutes.
But I remember when the news broke that it was 105
It
minutes.
was very
everybody was
exciting.
like, "What the fuck?"
Right. And
His
my
shortest
excitement went
movie
up like 40%.
ever, if you exclude following,
Right.
which should be excluded.
Yeah.
Right.
Which he made for a few bucks less than this one.
Which was an S&E Mutual, I think. That was part of his Fatty Arbuckle deal.
But yeah, no, I do remember we say it on this podcast. I think you're like, did you hear how short Dunkirk is?
Yeah, and it's nuts. It's nuts.
After Interstellar, which is his longest movie and is long.
Right.
I love it, but it's almost 3 hours long.
It's long.
Yeah.
And when the early like word comes out, people are like, it's very short. You like don't really have like character arcs. There's like very little dialogue. Like,
yeah, where
it's
did
like
you see
this
this?
experiential movie.
Because I
first
saw
and
a
foremost.
Lincoln Square press screening. I assume you did
same
as
here.
well. But I had like some of my friends had seen it already and told, like, I just remember Ehrlich saying, think Captain Phillips not Saving Private Ryan. Like that was all he sort of said to me. And I don't know. Yeah. Like, what did you expect going in?
I didn't know much going in. One friend who had seen it earlier said it's insane, and that was kind of all he said.
Sure,
and
it
thought,
is
all right,
insane.
I
well,
think that's apt.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good, and so I was prepared for it to be insane, whatever that meant in the
Right.
context of a Christopher Nolan movie.
I was prepared for some sort of a sensory experience.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I don't know. I was a little frightened.
And it is a different. Well, it's also that very first shot of the soldiers walking through that town
With the papers,
with
the leaflets
paper.
flying.
And also
yeah.
it's weird. And when I saw it again, I caught this. Although it's like it's hard to catch this, but they've just like stood up or something. Like it's just like a split second
Sure.
of them cowering, and then they kind of stand up and sort of start walking more casually. And it's such a weird way to begin, but immediately pulls you in.
I agree, and he literally sums everything up with just like a one or the leaflet. The we surround you, the like
You.
propaganda, you us, and then there's just that like loud, clangy, like you saw it in Lincoln Square too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
Like,
did,
the
yeah.
big IMAX in New York City, and the gunfire where you're just like, ugh, and then that's the whole movie.
Right.
Is you going,
at
oh
that point,
God.
right. But also like the thing that strikes me in that opening scene is he like kind of throws down his gauntlet, which is like, this is not a movie about the enemy.
Right.
This
You're
is
not
not a
gonna see
movie about
enemy,
the fight.
sure.
This is a movie
Right.
about survival because you're just hearing them.
Yeah.
You're exclusively hearing them, which immediately is like very unusual.
Mm.
It adds a really strange energy from that opening scene where it's like we're just watching the back of this kid's head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fionn Whitehead.
Right. It feels like he's being shot at by ghosts
Sure.
because he's framing it so particularly around this dude who is like, like such an ideal cinematic cipher.
Mhm.
Like Nolan found this kid who like had done one short film before, I believe. One
yeah.
episode of a TV show. Had never been in a movie before.
He'd been in like some miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like has one of those faces where it's like, yep, that looks like a kid in war. You know?
Yeah. No, he does.
And he has a certain like integrity to him, but is asked mostly to just like survive throughout this entire film.
Mhm.
But also this opening sequence, there are like 8 or 10 boys who look like him.
Mm-hmm.
I know watching it, I
Just
was
get
like,
mowed down.
which
Yeah.
one's like the lead guy?
Sure.
And then very quickly, like through process of elimination, you're
Oh,
like, well, I
it's-
guess that's our hero because everyone else is dead now.
The opening is actually, I forgot, of course, it does have that title.
Yeah.
The title card with the,
Yeah.
you know,
The enemy.
the enemy and praying for a miracle or whatever. You know,
Right. They're good people on both sides.
Uh,
On many sides. On many sides. Many sides.
When did you? Because you were making the tick.
Yeah. I saw it like I guess it was I saw it like maybe 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Because I was making the tick and then it came out when I was at Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was back shooting this other movie. So I saw it a little bit late, but I saw it at IMAX.
Yep.
Lincoln Square. And by the point I had seen it, it was like firmly in like dad mode territory.
Right.
Like I had like missed the Nolan bro window of like the rabid Nolan stands. And I saw it in a theater that was mostly like fathers and grandparents with their like children being like, no, this is important.
Right. Sure. Sure.
You know? I mean, you texted me after you saw it and said, I'm very curious to see what you think about this.
Right. Because I thought of our Saving Private Ryan episode.
Don't like war movies.
Right. You don't like war movies. And
I
this
have a hard
is
time with them.
a war movie with everything stripped out, like that you might cling to. Like
it's just
character,
a war movie. Right.
Or, sentimentality.
Right. And I like,
It has some sentimentality.
I was very shell-shocked when we did our Saving Private Ryan episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like,
Donald Trump had like just been elected president.
I
of the
was
United
fucked up by a
States.
lot of
Yeah.
different things at that time.
Mhm.
But I just like that, watching that movie the night before recording, I was like fucking losing it, like white knuckling it the entire time. And I feel like my opinion of that movie has grown since we recorded the episode. I feel like I was very complimentary, but I also was like,
but you were
I
just
can't
not
fucking
into
deal
it.
with this movie.
Yeah.
But when I like think about it more, I don't know if I have the courage to watch it again. When I think about it
seen it,
more,
like, so many times.
right? I'm like, God, that's what a great fucking movie. But all the things I think about when I replay it in my mind are like the dialogue scenes, the character interactions,
Yeah, Tom Hanks shit, the Spielberg shit.
right. And this movie is like, what if it's just like the storming the beach of Normandy in one way or another? Like the entire movie's operating at that level of intensity with very little else to grab onto. So it's like it's a movie designed for me not to like it.
Sure.
That having been said, I like it.
Sure.
Like
Do you like it, Bill? I assume you
I love it. Yeah.
it's great.
Like I feel
How many
like
times have you seen it?
4.
Wow, that's a lot of time. I've only seen it
That's
twice.
awesome.
I wanted to see. I checked it out in 35 millimeter. A friend of
Yes,
mine was
I
seeing
did
it.
too.
I have still not seen it in just regular 70 millimeter, and I would like to.
Oh no,
hope
right?
it's
No,
still
I saw it
showing
in. Sorry, I saw it in 70. Right, which was great. I have not seen it in regular
Yeah.
35 millimeter.
in 35 on a smaller screen, which
Right.
is what I saw it at the I guess Village East or
Sure.
what's the and it feels like a different movie. It really does.
Interesting.
More so than any of his others did, kind of in different formats.
I mean, the 70. There was a lot of format excitement around this movie.
Yes.
Certainly, even beyond like film Twitter or Nolan Bros or whatever. Like, I had like a lot of people in my life just asking me like, how should I see it? Like, I know that's important. Like,
But
what should I do?
That's the point is like he's able to make these things feel
Sure.
important. Like people
Yeah.
know that these aren't arbitrary decisions. And even just like they made those t-shirts that they were like handing out at the midnight screenings that were like, I saw Dunkirk in 70 millimeter.
Jesus Christ.
Like it's like a vacation. Like
I find IMAX very, very overwhelming in general. I found it very overwhelming for Interstellar. I found it very frightening for this. I can't handle how big it is, especially when there's a lot of negative space, which this movie, especially in the air scene, which just makes the air scene so tremendous to me in IMAX. And then I saw it in 70, and I had seen it already. So obviously, like a lot of the tension is gone the second time anyway. And I had a great time, but I mean, was that just that I was seeing it? I can't, it's hard for me to.
It's weird. Without the IMAX, it really does feel like a different experience. Not less immersive necessarily,
Sure.
but it does feel, strangely a little more unified.
Okay.
And it wasn't as loud also.
It's just very, very loud.
Yeah,
I like
Yes.
big, loud movies. I love IMAX.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for years for someone to use IMAX properly.
Yeah.
I think Nolan does it, but when I saw Interstellar, first time I saw Interstellar, I saw it in 35.
Sure.
And I loved it. And I think the second time I saw it, I also saw it in 35. I finally, went and saw it in IMAX, and I actually found it kind of distracting in IMAX because it cuts between.
It does cut. The cut
formats
is harsher.
so much.
Right. Whereas this, the cuts are much rarer
Yeah.
and briefer.
And it's like 80%,
where you can see the bars.
75% IMAX.
It seems like 70.
way up
I
there.
couldn't, I'm not a
I'd say it's like
mathematician here.
65% of the movie is in
Yeah.
IMAX.
But
yeah.
you really, I guess it mostly cuts to the black bars where you're like, on the boat with Rylance.
That's
Yeah.
what I noticed. It
Largely
was
on the
mostly
boat.
for dialogue because it's a sound issue.
Yeah.
But there's not much dialogue in the movie. So the boat stuff mostly felt like it was 35, and then a couple of the Branagh scenes where he talks for more than 10 consecutive sets.
Sure.
But other than that, the large majority of the movie is in this crazy, boxy, overwhelming. That's the other thing. You see IMAX movies where people shoot we shot 20% on it.
Right.
And it's mostly you're watching a letterboxed image that you're used to, and then every once in a while, oh my God, TARS is taking up the entire screen.
TARS!
Right.
No, I remember it with Catching Fire, the Hunger Games movie, where it's not in IMAX until she gets into the arena, and then it suddenly expands out. And I remember being happy that they tried to take advantage of the format
Yeah.
that way. But rarely do you really
Right.
Well, I loved it in Interstellar, but it was my first time, and I love space. But I sit in the back
Yeah.
because
I
I'm
sit closer.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a little dork who wants to sit in the back seat because I'm scared of the big picture.
Right.
And I was-
of course, they call me Patricia Hayton because you can see me in the middle.
So I was
If you're
sitting in
looking for me, that's where I'll
at
be.
my press screening. I'm sitting in those back seats, and this guy is sitting across from me who's got all these papers around him, and he's like, "What are you doing back here? You should sit over there." And I was like, I like to see the whole screen. I just want to sit. And he was like, I'm only sitting back here because I have to do all this work for the studio. He was taking notes the whole movie. And she was like, but Mr. Nolan sits right there. And he pointed right in the middle. He's like, that's his seat. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
He's keeping it warm for you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I feel like there is an innate glass ceiling to my enjoyment for this movie just because of the kind of film it is. But I definitely sat there and felt okay, this is pretty exemplary filmmaking. This is an insane achievement. I game recognize game,
Right.
One master of IMAX to another. Griffey Nooms tipping his hat to Nolan. But it is a very bizarre movie in that it doesn't offer you the traditional handles to sort of hold on to and carry you through the story, other than the Rylance plot, I would argue, which unsurprisingly was the thing that I was the most keyed into. A nice British man driving a little boat. A nice man with nice clothes.
So the gimmick of the movie, if you can call it whatever you want, but the format of the movie is these three timelines.
Right. We are hashtag the two
Conceits,
friends.
exactly.
These are hashtag the three temporalities.
And I remember reading that beforehand and thinking oh, that sounds like a Christopher Nolan thing right there.
Yeah.
But I like that the movie tries to be explicit about it, the mole 1 week, the sea 1 day, the air 1 hour.
Right. It lays out its cards real up front.
Mm-hmm.
And I, to me at least, the second I saw how it was laid out, it was oh, this completely makes sense. This isn't a gimmick for gimmick's sake.
Made sense to me. I mean, did you have any trouble? I've seen some complaints about the timeline.
I've seen my share of complaints about the timeline.
I never really understood what the problem, because I guess it's hard to articulate finding a thing confusing, but
Yeah, and I didn't find it confusing. And there are moments where you're disoriented, but I think in a pleasant way. I think Nolan likes to be a little ahead of the viewer at various points.
sure, yes.
And I think he likes to kind of pull you in that way. With a film like this, I find it so engrossing and beautiful and just riveting that it makes me an attentive viewer, right? And that's one of the things that Nolan does that I really appreciate, is that he finds a way to make sure that you're paying attention. It's in The Prestige. Are you looking closely?
You're absolutely right.
Right.
Yeah, he's right. He's trying to make sure your mind doesn't wander. Right.
Yeah. And I am by nature an inattentive viewer. A lot of films I review,
struggle with it.
Yeah, a lot of films I review I have to watch twice before I can kind of figure out what the hell I even think about it. And that's why with Nolan I'm never distracted. I'm never kind of pulled out of it. Almost never pulled out of one of his films. I'm always kind of locked in, even when I don't know entirely what's happening. I'm totally with him.
Well, there's this other element too, which is time is obviously this a big overarching thing in Nolan's whole filmography. There's the shift of I think his movies when we were starting the miniseries, I was like pushing this confidence thing up
You're
the
making
hill
this-
really hard. You know, it's all about
yeah.
confidence. But at a certain point, it like shifts into being about time more than anything, like his fascination with time, which I think falls into this bigger thing he's at, which is like, I think to one degree or another, Nolan's always making movies about movies. But unlike some filmmakers who get like tagged with that label and it's like, oh, they're just referencing the movies they grew up loving. I think Nolan movies are about the way that people process movies.
Yeah.
You know, like I think they're movies about watching and processing information and how information is told to us and all of that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, Inception, like that's literally what that movie is about. The reason why everyone's so into like the metaphor about it tracking for filmmaking is because it's like, you know, he's like the BFG. He's trying to like cook up some dreams for us. You know, he's trying to like make this artificial world that like we can buy into.
And then he cast the BFG
Right.
in this movie.
Yes, he does. Which I thought there's a weird amount of farts. Like
On the Moonstone.
the scene where they run out of like gas on the boat and Rylance just powers it through farts felt a little.
You're in
glib to me.
oil. You're in oil.
And he's good. Fuzz Wimples get me to
Then he
Dunkirk.
farts and it explodes, and everybody burns and dies and drowns.
Yeah, it just felt like that was a weird meshing of tones because on one hand something very tragic's going on, and on the other hand the dogs are farting.
Well, also Tom Hardy really could have used it more. You know, like he's the
Yes.
one who's really got a fuel issue in this movie.
Right. He should have started farting in that tank.
When his propeller stops turning, and then he has to fart to get it going.
Right. You just see him
This
with
is
a
so
can of
inappropriate,
beans.
by the way.
Kind of hands.
They're
yeah.
people, you know.
Yes, it is. Yes, you were correct. It is very inappropriate.
Was the Saving Private Ryan podcast like this?
Yeah. pretty much.
Worse,
Yeah,
probably. It was probably
worse.
worse.
Good.
Probably worse.
Yeah, we're irreverent jokesters, I would
Yes.
say. Yeah, irreverent jokesters.
Right. But I think this like idea of being so fascinated by how things play out in real time, like people trying to fight against time, hits like this boiling point with this movie. But the other thing, you know, that I think stops it from just being like a gimmick or Nolan doing it for like the sake of Nolan loving disjointed narratives and all of that, is that like if you were to try to construct this movie chronologically, Tom Hardy would only be in the last like 10 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
It just be, and I think it would also, there's just like something horrifying and very suspenseful about the mole stuff for the first half of the movie because you know nothing's going to go right.
Right.
Because you know they're not making it off the beach.
Right.
So all of their schemes, such as like, let's try and get on the boat with this guy on the stretcher and like, let's try and crawl onto, you know, like, you're just like, oh God. Like,
But that's the point is like if you were doing it in order, most of the movie would be these guys just not getting saved.
Sure.
Before these rescue missions to come after them started very late within the narrative.
Or you just start on the last day, but then there's nothing
But he doesn't allow
about
it doesn't allow you to experience just the desperation of these people just waiting there.
Exactly. And like I mean, like Saving Private Ryan, you know, you heard at the time veterans say like, oh, it really captured the experience of getting off the boat and just walking into chaos. And I read some interview with a veteran about this movie where he said it better than any, it got the idea of how miserable and scary it was to be dive bombed.
Sure.
You know, to just hear that noise for like a while, have nothing you can do except just like lay on the ground.
Right.
And just hope you don't get blown up.
And it also captures that thing about those German bombers, which was they could pretty much fly vertically.
Right.
And that great shot, which is, you know, which justifies the IMAX on its own
agreed.
of just that head
and
in the
noise.
of that head in the foreground with that tiny plane in the distance, which you can see it so clearly in IMAX, is just so well done.
Yeah.
And just so terrifying.
It's very frightening.
Yeah.
It's especially the first time, and he just makes it like inhumanly loud as it should be.
But that's a good point you make, which is like we're watching this movie, we know the different timelines going on, so you're like, well, they're not going to get saved now.
Sure.
Yeah. They're going to have to live through this.
Because the first thing they do, I mean, we should mention. Okay, so like, we talked about the scene where he's running to the mole. Right. He gets to the mole. What does he try to do? He pulls a real Griffin Newman.
Finds he
tries to take a poop.
He tries to take a poop.
Which is something you don't see in war movies either, too.
Which I will say, you know what, you're right. This is a good way to get me locked in on a character.
Yeah.
Especially for a movie that isn't going to do a lot of character building. It's going to ask you mostly just like accept this kind of like cipher character.
Yeah.
If I see someone taking a deuce, I immediately I
You're
feel
locked
like
in
I'm
with
in
him,
their
I get it.
headspace.
And
It's very, and that's the other thing about this film. In a way, much more than his other films, it's very intimate in that way.
That's very true.
Right.
He usually struggles with intimacy, I would say.
Yeah.
And the fact that this movie is basically one giant insane combat set piece in some way, and yet it is in this movie that he achieves what is probably kind of his greatest moments of intimacy, is quite ironic, I would say.
And also kind of his most probing, specific kind of human tragedy, which is this guy has been holding in a shit for a week because he's there on the beach and he's trying.
He's trying.
He gets performance anxiety.
Well, he sees a guy burying another soldier on the
Right.
beach just a little farther away.
Right.
And they
Goes in,
join up.
helps. Yeah.
They
become buddies.
This is Anurin Barnard. That's the actor who plays Gibson. Who is he's a Welsh actor. I don't know what to tell you.
But that is kind of the quiet through line of this movie. Like in the same way that Bridge of Spies, is Tom Hanks going I just want to get home and get into bed. I think Fine Whitehead is just I just want to take a shit. I've been holding in a shit for a week. I've had the worst week of my life.
It's a bad week they have.
Yeah. And I cannot find a toilet anywhere.
Well, look, it's 24. He probably goes eventually. You
I
know
don't
how
think
people
so.
are does
I don't
Jack
think so.
Bauer
I
ever
think
go to
he's
the
holding it
bathroom?
in.
And it's there's some when we're cutting away, he's managing it.
And another interesting thing about the whole taking a shit
Please.
narrative element is, one of Christopher Nolan's favorite movies is The Thin Red Line. And
a great movie.
In The Thin Red Line, the novel, there is a great scene where a character tries to take a shit.
Really?
And a Japanese soldier comes on him, and he has to kill the Japanese soldier, And it's actually the character played by Jared Leto.
Sure.
In the movie. And I believe they actually shot it for the film, but didn't use it. And it's actually, I think, is it Jared Leto? I think it's Jared Leto. It might be one of the other, but it's another character who we see very briefly in the movie. And I believe they had shot that scene earlier because it's the first person that any of them kills or something like that. There's some, there's some, very emotional element to that kill happening in that scene. So I'm sure that Nolan, being kind of an obsessive geek about this stuff, probably remembers that scene. I mean, I'm sure that's.
I mean, considering the things he includes in this movie, which is a bullet train of a movie, right?
Yes. Let me just
he puts that in there. Yes.
Quickly, interesting trivia fact. I don't know if you know this, but to prepare for that role, Jared Leto sent a box of shit to every one of his castmates. And that's a big cast.
That's why Clooney was really mad about.
He sent them all poop.
It wasn't that he got cut out. It was the box.
Actually, okay.
That was the only way he knew how to get in a character.
This is true, by the way. Apparently, on the shooting of that film, Woody Harrelson, whenever he was on set, was often right off camera farting in people's faces. I've heard this. Apparently, it's a thing.
He just likes to do that.
A year. They were there for a year.
They were wherever they shot the Philippines or some jungle territory.
And apparently, Woody Harrelson was just going around shitting in the background
points to Woody Harrelson. That's a great bit.
10 background points.
Yeah, and also, I mean, whatever works. Clearly, the results they got out of everyone. Yeah. Maybe Woody Harrelson needs to fart on more sets.
They shot for 100 days in Australia, 24 days in the Solomon Islands. Sorry, I just wanted to find out where they shot The Thin Red Line. 124 days. It's a long shoot.
Long shoot.
All right, Dunkirk. So we've covered the whole movie
at
this point?
Much. Yeah. So Temporality 1. He's on the land.
He's on the mole, the beach. With the mole is these beachheads.
Right.
I feel like some people also get confused by that because they think there's sort of a spy in the movie. Not really, though.
Right. But I know people who definitely thought that.
That's what that referred to.
Especially because it's the first title card, so we haven't set up. It's land, sky, sea. People think it's which one of these characters is going to end up getting ousted by Anderson Cooper?
Yes, exactly. Great pull.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I think quickly they find they're walking around and they find the guy on the stretcher and they sort of run him up. This is our meal ticket.
Yeah.
And what happens is I think they see
silently.
they see I think he sees the stretchers.
Yeah.
And then the dive bombing happens.
Right,
And
because he
there's-
tries to
yeah.
get in one line, and
Yeah.
the guy's like, "This ain't your line, mate."
Yeah.
Because he's like,
It's
whatever.
the Grenadiers,
It's
right?
the Grenadiers,
Right.
right? And then the dive bombing happens, which is rough.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
he's seen the
Yes.
he's seen the stretchers at that point. The dive bombing happens, and I think after the dive bombing, he and the Frenchman like kind of exchange a glance, and the next thing you know, they've got a stretcher.
they're like,
'Cause they're
"Let's
like, we got to
go."
get the fuck out of this.
Yeah, this is not waiting in lines here. Not gonna work.
See, when you said pulls a Griffin Newman, I thought you were referring to that because that's totally what I would do in that
I would.
situation.
I think a lot of us would do
Yeah,
that.
let me just find someone who's close to dying and be like, "Hey, buddy,
Oh,
you
my
doing?
friends!
Hey."
I would put myself on the stretcher,
Yes,
so I know
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Someone
yeah,
take
you're right.
me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they should have done.
Yeah,
Because of course, then they're running. And they run through all these lines, and you see that they're stopping French people from getting on the boats. You sort of get these glimpses of how this is all being organized. They run over the little plank,
Mm-hmm.
which is I don't like that. That
Yeah.
always freaks me out in any movie. I'm like,
Yep.
oh no,
because it's like one board, right? It's
Yeah.
like literally like
And three guys. Too.
three guys,
Yeah.
3 weight, but they do it.
3 men in a stretcher.
3 men and a stretcher, and
That's
then
worth cheering for.
they get him on the boat, and of course, it's just like, all right, get off.
Yeah.
This not for you, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that the entire? They don't get back. That's not the boat that they then sneak onto, is it? Or is it?
No. They're pulled off, and I believe that's the boat. I'm not sure about this, but I think that might actually be the boat that Harry Styles is on.
That
right?
sounds.
Because then it
Originally,
gets,
okay.
I believe it gets bombed.
Yeah, because that boat almost immediately goes
Yeah.
because that was the problem they had. They were lining these people up to get them onto these moles that had these big boats, but then the boats were such easy targets,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's why they stopped essentially trying the destroyers evacuation.
Which brings us to temporality 2.
Dose.
Sneak attack. What if we have nice men take their little fishing boats?
Good British folk.
Solid people.
Yes.
What is interesting though is right before they cut to
The Moonstone, the
the
Mark Rylance.
Moonstone,
Yeah.
somebody yells, "Where the hell is the bloody Air Force?"
Yes, right.
And every time I see that movie, now they're going to cut to the Air Force. I'm like, no, wait, they're cutting to the Moonstone.
No, Christopher Nolan, he
has a plan.
And I remember at first I was like, is he going to rigidly stick to like, we go mole, sea, air, mole, sea, air, mole, sea, air. I'm not cutting between like, I'm not doing like sea, mole, air, sea, air, mole. But no, he doesn't do that.
He does
So I
whatever
don't
he
know why I
wants.
mentioned
He
it.
does whatever the fuck he wants. He's a grown ass man. So this is a nice man with a good sweater, and he has a fishing boat
A very nice looking pleasure boat. I would say.
and a very handsome little son,
yeah, who's his son? Who's that kid?
Blondie McBritish. I think
yeah,
that's his
Christopher
name.
Nolan Jr.
Yeah,
Tom Glyn Carney. He feels like the kind of guy who, could be playing Ron Weasley, like if the timelines matched up or whatever. He's got nice red hair in real life.
Yes. Okay.
He's got nice blonde hair in this movie.
I was gonna say learn hair colors, but in real life he's got red hair. That's a good dye job, actually.
Yeah, good job, guys.
What else
Yeah.
has he been in? Because he does look familiar.
Nothing, like literally nothing. He was in the British TV soap Casualty, which is set in a hospital, and he's done some theater. But that's it. That is all. It's crazy.
Good actor.
He is. He's good. He's excellent. Everyone's good,
Yeah.
Well,
right?
Oh, everyone is fantastic. And, when I did watch the film again, it really struck me how good Killian Murphy is, which we'll
He's
get
great.
to.
Yeah.
I mean, but he is exceptional in this movie.
I agree. I think he is the best performance in this film, but he is not my favorite character in this movie because I think you can guess who my favorite character is.
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint. He's the guy who is underqualified for the circumstances that he is in.
Sure. Barry, how do you say his name? Keegan?
I don't know.
It's spelled like Keoghan, who's an Irish actor who I
Very
just
good.
saw The Killing of a Sacred Deer
Yeah.
last night, and now I hate him, and I can't look at
he's in
him.
that. Okay.
It really is amazing how different that character is from this one.
You will really gain even more appreciation for his work in Dunkirk after you see The fucking Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I can't wait. I thought he was fucking great in this movie.
He's good in this. He's got a great face. He's
Oh,
got
yeah.
this like just sort of like, how do you put like this sort of putty face? Like he's sort of frozen in this sort of like, as the British would say, gormless expression.
Yeah, and he's got sort of these beady eyes that are weirdly expressive still.
He looks like he could grow up to be either Christian Bale or Shane McGowan. He's like caught in that moment when his fate is about to be decided by the gods, and you don't know in which direction it's going to go.
Right.
Apparently, he was in the movie 71, which I saw. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I forgot about that. That movie, I saw it at like the New York Film Festival or something, and it's sort of
I really like that film.
mostly blacked out of my memory. I mean, I remember that was another intense, rattling military experience.
Yeah. Did he play one of the young kids in that movie?
He must have.
Yeah.
He might. Let me see if he's no. There's no other. But yeah, I don't know.
He's Georgie boy.
He's George.
He does some work
George
on the
Mills.
boat.
Yes.
And then
at first I thought he was the second son. I thought he was
so too.
related.
And then very clearly not.
No, he's more just like they're loading the boat up with lifeboats, and then Mark
He's their boat
Rylance,
boy.
I guess, decides I'm just going to take the boat.
Yeah, he does because apparently that was a problem,
Right.
Where the Navy requisitioned
They were
certain boats.
literally taking your boats,
and
right?
They got rid of the pilots, and very often the people that were driving these boats did not know the waters, and a number of boats, I think, I don't know if they sank, but like a lot of them
Had
just
trouble.
did not get to Dunkirk because they were being sailed by people who just did not know the boat or did not know the waters.
Right.
Yeah, but Rylance is a pro. He's a steady hand. This guy knows from the ocean.
He does.
He knows the sea.
He's a mariner.
Yeah.
He's
You
a
could
mariner.
say.
And he knows it's pronounced Dunkirk, not Dunkirk.
Dunkirk. Yeah. He's. I mean, look, Rylance. It's funny because he's this incredibly versatile actor.
Yeah.
Who, like, especially like plays like Jerusalem or whatever. Like, he can do anything. And now he is getting pegged. He's getting a certain peg in Hollywood.
Most definitely. Yeah.
But he's great at. I mean, there's a reason to peg him there.
Yeah, and it's something that no one else can do as well as he does. Like even if he's capable of doing 1,000 other things.
English Mr. Rogers. I don't know, like, I mean, like, what do you?
Yeah, the gentlest man in film.
Yeah, they need to cast him as like a Mission Impossible villain or something like that.
He'd be so good at that.
Yeah.
Because even if he played it folksy, he could play it terrifyingly folksy.
Yeah, I think he should play Clayface in the next Batman movie.
Nolan loves him. Maybe
Killer
Nolan will
Croc.
come back. Do you think here? All right, here's a side question.
Yeah.
Do you think if Nolan came around to Warner Brothers and he said, "I don't like the DC universe. I don't like the Joker. I don't like what you guys are doing. I'll make you a Batman movie if you just wipe it all away." They would be like, "Yes, we will do
100%.
it."
100%.
You mean just get rid of all the other movies they have planned?
Yeah, we just ignore. You can keep Wonder Woman. I know that did well, and that was good, but you get rid of everything else.
Oh, I think they're
movie.
waiting for somebody to come and do that. Like, just say,
someone tell us what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're in that mode where you start acting really shitty to the person you're dating in the hopes that they dump you.
Yeah.
No,
you're right.
I'm passive aggressive. I don't want to end this, so let me just be kind of a brat so they get tired of me.
It's so endlessly baffling where they're like, Ben Affleck, rumors Ben Affleck's going to leave. Ben Affleck's like, I'm not leaving. And they're like, no, he was never going to leave. Anyway, the Batman movie's not going to be connected to the universe. And everyone's like, what? And you're like, well, it is, but it won't. And people are like, okay. And they're like, anyway, Joker movie? Martin Scorsese's attached. And people are like, what?
And they're like, wait, hold on, but a different Joker movie from the directors of Crazy Stupid Love. Or the writers of Crazy. No,
writers and directors.
They didn't write it. They didn't write it. They directed it.
And every single announcement from them now feels like a cry for help.
It really does. It feels like they're just sort of lobbying. And it's funny because they finally had the hit this year.
Yeah.
They finally figured out, here's the kind of movie people are looking for, which is slightly broader,
and I don't,
more open-hearted.
I don't even hate these movies. I feel like I'm actually, I was the one guy who gave Suicide Squad a mildly positive
You're
review.
crazy.
You're even crazier than some of those people on the Suicide Squad. You're fucking twisted, man.
And I didn't, and while I can't really say I liked Batman v Superman, I didn't hate it. And
I'm sorry, what's the full title of that movie? I don't recognize the movie you just referenced.
Batman BVS.
Dawn Justice, I believe.
Yeah.
You forgot the Justice Dawns in that movie?
Yeah, and so it's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, it's you imagine that's what the sort of development meetings within the studio are like. Okay, let's just throw some ideas against the wall.
Yeah.
What are some things we could do? Hypothetically, what could we do? Joker Harlem movie. A different continuity Joker in Brooklyn. Shazam fighting Black Adam. No, wait, Black Adam's his own movie.
Yeah,
Just
Shazam
run
will
with
come
me
later.
here.
Just take a picture of the whiteboard.
Yeah.
That's our press release.
But it's literally like
we're going to do an Inhumans movie. That's Marvel. No, we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
But
It's fine.
like
It's fine.
everything in their like coke-fueled development meeting is like getting issued a statement via statement to Deadline. Like they're publicly disclosing every wanton idea they have. Yeah.
Cyborg, though?
Yeah, I mean, what a great character.
I can't wait to see
It's
what
gonna be
Cyborg,
good.
what comes out of that mother
Everyone's
box.
favorite superhero.
Now, is he's a half man, half robot? Is that his deal?
Well, that was historically the thing, but then if you look at the design of Cyborg in Justice League, he is approximately 94%
Yeah, he's
robot.
94% robot and like 3/4 face man.
He's,
Ooh, I like
he's
that.
like got the opposite of Phantom of the Opera,
Yeah, right.
where he's just got the little sliver.
Like if a robot lady fell in love with him, he'd be like, "Don't look at my human face. It's hideous." Is that what we're talking about here?
I just, they should have just brought in Jean-Claude Van Damme for the part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The original Cyborg.
They should have made Cyborg too.
So in the sea,
Yeah.
Mark Rylance takes his boat out.
Yes.
Georgie gets on board. You like Georgie?
I love Georgie. I love Georgie boy.
He's real shit.
And he goes like, Georgie, we're not going fishing or something. We're going to fucking Dunkirk.
To war.
Yeah.
To war, George.
And George is like, yeah. No, I knew
No,
about
I've been
that.
to
Yeah,
war.
yeah. No, I
Cool.
totally knew where we were going. I did this on purpose. Yeah.
I definitely don't need any kind of like pillow in the back of my head. You shouldn't like cover up any loose exposed
do you want this
screws.
helmet? No, well, I need a helmet.
I do. I mean, Georgie's trajectory though is really fascinating because
Please go
I
on.
remember when I first saw the film. At the end, I'm getting a little ahead of us.
No,
but,
get ahead.
But
I mean,
at the
people
end,
seem
when
to
when you see the little news item where they talk about him being a hero, and I remember initially thinking to myself, well, he wasn't really a hero. I mean, he kind of
Yeah, he
came on, but-
contributes very little.
He
Sure,
contributes very little. And then I realized, wait, no, because I mean, the moment when he hits his head, I mean, he's basically stopping Killian Murphy from
hijacking.
well,
the
from
boat, right.
bashing Mark Rylance's head in
Yeah,
and
that's
taking
right.
the boat back.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a sacrifice he does because later the Moonstone is the boat that saves, Fion Whitehead and all these other guys while they're in the oil.
In the oil, which is
right. I mean, it's really. I mean, in essence, if Georgie had not been there to kind of sacrifice himself, these men would not have been saved.
and that's certainly something Nolan is thinking about.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
every sort of
Yeah.
like little bit of balance, like on either side, he's thinking
and
about
I mean, both of there are only two major characters in this movie that die, right? Him and the Frenchman.
and the Frenchman
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
dies off screen.
Who dies? Well, it's
practically.
nice. Yeah, I mean,
He's
you
sort
just
of
see his
drowning,
hand.
right.
You just see
Yeah,
his
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
But it is interesting how, I mean, with the Frenchman, he's constantly conspiring to find a way off the beach or off the boat,
Sure.
and numerous points saves everyone else, kind of despite his own best interest.
Right. He saves everyone on the sinking boat by opening the door and
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And then later on, when they're on the lifeboat, the one that Killian Murphy's on initially,
Right.
he's there.
Yeah.
He's kind of in the corner, and he's the one who, after they push them away, after they push
Pulls
Harry and
Pulls him back on.
he
right.
tosses them a little line
Yeah,
very
right.
quietly so that they're pulled ashore. And then at the end, I mean, I think he's also, I guess he's also stuck, but he's the last person
Yep.
who has his fingers in the,
In
he's the last
in
person.
holes, the bullet holes.
Yeah, he's the last person left on that boat. Basically, he allows everyone else to survive.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's the roughest scene. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But we got one more
ooh.
temporality to discuss.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my favorite temporality.
And much like Aloha, it's all about the sky.
Sure. It's a conscious homage.
Yes.
Right.
Nolan's like a huge Aloha fan.
Yeah,
like
he's a
he
big-
said, I think his two cornerstones for this movie were Aloha and The Thin Red Line.
Did you hear his list of movies? It's a good list.
No.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Okay.
He likes to give his little list of movies
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like
he's a-
inspired him. The Wages of Fear, which is
Scooby-Doo
obvious.
2, Monsters Unleashed.
Dunstan checks in, but in 70 millimeter, the original 70
Of course,
millimeter
yes.
release.
Yeah, no, yeah.
If you're not seeing in 70 millimeter, it's not the same experience.
Agreed. Wages of Fear, tense movies like
okay.
Alien, Speed,
Uh-huh. Oh,
which is a great movie.
yeah.
Unstoppable, which I really
which is a
enjoyed.
great movie.
Love that
the Tony
movie.
Scott film?
The Tony
Yeah.
Scott
Yeah, that
movie.
movie rules.
I
Tony
think-
Scott's
is it-
masterpiece.
And
as far as
is it
I'm
his
concerned.
last movie?
Yeah, it was his last movie.
It's a great movie. I love that movie, and I feel like it gets no credit.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
great. When you do the Tony Scott, have you done the Tony Scott podcast?
No, we should do a Tony
You
Scott.
should.
Yeah.
Tony Scott made some wild movies.
Yes, he did. And he definitely had some blank checks there.
For sure. Domino.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love Unstoppable. Love the idea of Chris Nolan just sitting down at home and firing up the Unstoppable Blu-ray.
I'm so happy to hear this.
Yeah,
that
and
he
it
was,
also like speaks to this thing, which is like all the most like intelligent directors I find when you hear their movie taste
Mhm.
are not snobs.
Sure.
Like the
Yeah.
people who are snobs are people who like revere Nolan and they're like, that's the only real kind of movie, not bullshit like Unstoppable. And then you
Sure,
ask Chris
sure.
Nolan, he's like, I love Unstoppable. It's a fantastically well constructed movie. What are you talking about? You
fuck you,
idiot?
fuck you. Here's a 70 millimeter re-release of Unstoppable.
yeah, what if that's what he's doing next? He's like, I've decided it's my next project.
I'm gonna tour Unstoppable with a live orchestra.
I'm going to tour Unstoppable on a train around the country. And no one will stop us.
By the way, getting back to that discussion, the next thing he might do. I mean, one of the things he's always talked about is that Howard Hughes,
the Hughes movie, right?
film that he still says is the best screenplay he ever wrote,
Which is quite a thing for him to be saying.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the rules didn't apply. Like I feel like every time
that's the
he
problem.
gets Bigfooted
yeah.
by some even more famous director.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the first time that happened, I mean, it was The Aviator, and it was like two of his heroes, Michael Mann and
Right.
Martin Scorsese.
and
Teaming up
they
to
had
beat his
joined
ass.
their Hughes movies practically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like Greed, Sunrise, Ryan's Daughter, Battle of Algiers, Chariots of Fire, Foreign Correspondent. Those are the other movies.
Great,
Okay.
all great.
All great movies.
I mean, that's a good list.
Not many of them were movies, though. I think he was more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unstoppable makes a lot of sense because that similarly is like here's a speeding train.
Yeah.
You know, literally, but then also all the different narratives of everyone trying to stop it. You
It's
know,
a missile the size of the
Empire
missile the
State
size of the
Building.
Empire State Building.
Yes. What a good film!
It is a great film.
It's so fucking cool.
Years ago, I did a list for Vulture of the like the however many greatest action movies
Sure.
since Die Hard.
Mhm.
And I included, if I remember correctly, I included Unstoppable on that list, and people
People are
got
mad.
really angry.
Movie's good, man. I should watch it again. I love that movie.
But Temporality 3.
Temporality 3's in this guy. You got 3 planes.
Mm-hmm.
You got Fortis Leader. We don't see much of him.
No.
He is not long for this world.
Played by Michael Caine.
Yes, right.
In a
right.
vocal only.
Oh, is it
performance.
actually? No, I know it's Michael Caine on the guy on the radio is Fortis Leader.
That is Fortis Leader,
okay,
which
okay.
I only put together later where I was like, oh, Fortis Leader bites the dust real fast.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe 81-year-old guys shouldn't be flying. It's Michael Caine.
Do not go gently. He should. That's what he should do.
I mean, he's an actor in the winter
One
of
last-
his life. Yeah.
One last time.
Tom Hardy's like, no, don't do the poem. He's like, do not go gently.
Prank caller. Switching the.
You got Ferrier, who is Tom Hardy, and you
Yes.
got this guy Collins. I love that actor, whoever that guy is.
That guy is hot.
He's very
He
handsome.
is really
Yeah.
good.
You know who else is very good looking? Tom Hardy, which is why they cover
Oh.
up 98% of his face in this movie.
Well, no
the
one
most
loves Jack.
baller move of all
Jack
time.
Lowden.
He
is
can
the name of
act
the-
sitting down though.
It's crazy.
He can act sitting down.
It is.
yeah.
I agree.
is.
You're thinking of Locke. He's sitting throughout Locke.
I haven't seen
Locke
Locke.
is
you
so
get,
good.
You get a kick
He's
out
so
of
good
Locke.
in Locke.
That's a seated performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
He's
he's
in
one
a
of our
car for the
best.
whole
Add it to my
movie.
list.
He is one of our best sitting actors, right?
Yeah. No, I mean he is. He is such a physical actor.
Yeah.
Sure.
And yet, for some reason, because of that, it actually makes sense to have him be the guy that's sitting down.
Well, I also
And
yes.
in this one, I mean, he does so much with just his eyes in this movie.
He does.
Yes.
It's incredible eye acting, which he also, I think, did a good job with in The Dark Knight Rises,
Yes.
which is the other eye acting heavy Tom
And,
Hardy.
and the first half of Fury Road too. I mean, he's
Yes.
Yeah.
you know,
But this
It's
feels
true.
like
That's very true.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot he has the big.
this feels like okay. So Dark Knight Rises, we covered up most of his face, but he's got his full body to act with.
Yeah.
Fury Road, it was like first 50% of the movie, or first 25%, let's say.
30. Sure.
We've covered up his face, and he's chained to a car, so he doesn't have that much range for his body. And Nolan was like, let's go a step
The next
further.
movie is going to be a remake of Derek Jarman's Blues with Tom Hardy.
It does feel like both he is challenging himself. Like, it feels like he gets off on like tying his arm behind his back and still
Yes,
trying
I
to
think
like
so.
win the boxing match. But also, I think Nolan at this point is like, what? I mean, he can do it, right?
Yeah, hey, Tommy.
Yeah, his next movie, Tom Hardy's
He's
going to be
play Zordon. He'll just be a head.
I was going to say he's going to an entire film where he's in a coffin.
We already had that movie.
Yeah, but the
Terrible
camera
movie.
never goes inside the coffin.
Sure. People are just
You're
like, he's in there.
exclusively- and he doesn't
and then
talk.
the credits roll.
Yeah.
He could do like a ghost story situation
Yes,
where it's
yes,
Tom Hardy in
100%.
a sheet.
Yes.
Tom Hardy just walking around
No, but
with
I
like
want
a sack
him
of potatoes on his
in
head.
a box, and his name is Mute Bob, and everyone invokes him the entire movie, and he never gets out of the box.
And he gets an Oscar.
Yeah.
He gets an
Exactly.
Oscar.
That's
I would
his
get it
Oscar.
too. That guy just got so much presence,
Oh, God.
burning up every frame. But yeah, the first like chunk of this movie, he's wearing like a mouth mask,
Right
oxygen
at
mask.
the beginning, he doesn't have it. And then when they sort of enter, like, you know, they go into higher altitude, he puts it on, and he basically has it on for the rest of the movie.
Right, but then he also puts the helmet and the goggles on
Sure.
top of that. He gets more and more covered as the film goes on.
I just love, and it's in the trailer, I just love how he says, I'm on him, because in any other movie, he would say that triumphantly.
Right.
And it just says, like, I'm on him. You know, just
it's
like
his job.
totally routine.
It's work a day. Yeah.
And apparently, Tom Hardy's grandfather
Oh, yeah?
had
I mean,
flown-
if you're a Brit, you know,
Yeah.
you may well have had a veteran parent.
yeah, had flown for the RAF over Dunkirk. So
And he got these real Spitfires, which are
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, this is where the dad shit really kicks in, I feel like.
Yeah.
My dad was obsessed with Spitfires. As a British man who grew up after the war.
Yeah.
Like, they are like, Britain like really reveres Spitfires as like our last great like combat thing. Like,
Mhm.
right? I mean, like, Britain has really done a lot of cool war shit after World War II.
what's the line? Like, Rolls Royce engines. What's the?
And he's bragging about, you know, sweeter sound you never did hear, oh schnazwashers.
It's
You know?
a great. It's his greatest dad moment.
It is. And of course, it's later we realize it's sort of shading because it's like
Yeah.
he has the son who
Yeah.
died flying a hurricane.
And then Ruby Barnhill is weirdly on the boat, and she goes, RAF.
Now, you may not have heard our BFG episode, Bilge, but it's one of our most celebrated and famed episodes where he does that constantly.
But it's weird. They just keep on having her yell out the initials of the Royal Air Force.
It's in Rylance's Riders that she has to now be with him in every movie, saying 3 letters.
She's his hype man.
Exactly. But those Spitfires are very cool to look at least for me. I found it very stirring to see the real thing.
Well, yeah, and then the crazier thing is that Nolan figured out a way to put an IMAX camera in a cockpit
He's so crazy.
and fly a fucking IMAX camera in the sky, which is like the greatest contribution of this movie to cinema history for me is like, oh, the closest we will ever come to feeling
Right.
like Superman.
Sure,
like
sure.
essentially watching those sequences it feels like you're superhuman.
Because I mean, the plot of the air temporality is just like they fly across Dunkirk. One of them gets shot down. Fly some more. Another one gets shot down.
It takes an hour.
And then Tom Hardy
Well,
makes it there. And
But he also
Doesn't-
has basically an hour's worth of fuel.
Right.
Right. That determines the length of the thing.
and rather than turning around at a certain point, he just keeps going.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sort of his big heroic decision. He fights off some other guys. He defends a minesweeper,
But
and then he shows up right at the end there.
But,
to,
and early on, he flies over like 3 of the film's big set pieces.
He does,
just
yes.
from the distance, which I love because also, you know, this is the kind of movie. Conceptually, it leaves no room for reflection, right? It's just one giant
course.
montage,
which is
set
what
piece.
being a soldier is,
Yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
like you can't have time to reflect
Yeah.
because then you would stop.
But the film creates these moments of reflection by its very structure, which is another reason why I find
The
that
temporality.
the temporality is so compelling.
Yeah.
Is that it kind of creates, and it's like you would not in a movie like this or in a set piece
Mm-hmm.
like this, you would not ordinarily have flashbacks. There just would not be time for them. It would slow
Right.
everything down. But the film creates flashbacks because it
can go back in time
you
by
see
cutting
Killian
to the
Murphy
sea or
on the
whatever,
boat, and he's a mess, and then suddenly
That's my favorite thing in the whole movie.
When
Yeah.
you
So
see
suddenly
him,
you're back.
when you see him early, and he's like, now, boys, you know, everyone will get on the boat eventually. You know,
Right.
he's like totally chill.
He is literally the most chill survivor of a ship sinking ever.
Because everyone else is like, Jesus, we're in the fucking water. He's like, it's warm. Don't worry.
The water's warm enough, fellas.
But also, when Jack Lowden goes down and Tom Hardy's like, oh, you all right? You all right? And he like sort of gives him a little salute and just keeps going. And we stick with Hardy and we don't resolve that until later.
If you watch it on IMAX and you sit close enough to the screen, which I was stupid enough to do once.
Sure.
You can actually see a tiny little hand come out of the plane, seen from Tom Hardy's perspective. It's just tiny little hand just goes like I'm mimicking an actual waving now. Yeah. It really is. I think it was like the fourth time I saw it that I actually noticed this.
So you sat right at the front for the fourth time?
I sat in what I thought was the sixth row, but somehow was the fifth row, which somehow made all the difference. And
Sure.
It was a little overwhelming, but at least I got to see the hand.
Yeah. Little hand. That is the thing that like the temporalities thing is actually pretty pragmatic. It's not a gimmick at all because it's like that's the only way he can tell this story that he wants to tell. And the fact that like we know in the same way that the thing that's so tense and stressful about watching the mall sequences is like, fuck, they still have a week to go.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
They're not going to get out of this easily. In the Hardy sequences, you're essentially dealing in real time.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Like you're not, it's not a straight hour in his life and there are jumps in between. But essentially, like every minute you're with Hardy is like a real minute that counts.
Yeah.
So you're feeling that sustained kind of like what it must feel like to have the adrenaline of being in a situation like that where every second feels like a year.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. I mean, with previous films, and in particular, I think Dark Knight Rises, Nolan has done this thing, which ordinarily you don't do, I think, as an action filmmaker, which is, he will have an action set piece that is also a montage, right? Which is not a thing you're supposed to do. I mean, you'll have your big set pieces, but then, you'll have your montage and, those are for getting over kind of narrative bumps.
Right. It's for speeding things up. Yeah.
But he'll have scenes where it is simultaneously a montage and an action sequence. And, it's kind of this editorial thing that he's been pushing throughout his career. And in Dunkirk, I feel like is the ultimate expression of that because the entire movie is basically that.
The entire movie is a big montage.
Yeah. But it's also a giant action set.
Yes. You're right. That was brilliant. I feel like we should just end the podcast.
Yeah, good episode. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, we got to talk about Harry Styles.
Yeah, God.
How have we not mentioned Harry Styles? He's good. Well, so wait, at the press screening you were at, was it the one that I was at where as I walked there, it was in the morning.
I did see it in the morning. Yeah.
I got to the Lincoln Square Theater quite early because I wanted that back seat. Give me that right in the back.
Meanwhile, they call me Neil Flynn because I'm in the middle every week.
Yes, that's right. Wednesdays at 9. And I don't know if that's the time slot. And there are like 6 girls sitting outside the theater. And I'm like, are you here for the press screening? Which is a silly question to ask 6 girls who are obviously like 19 years old. But I didn't know what else to ask.
They could be writing for any number of esteemed publications.
Exactly. I should not. And they were like, no, we're here for the premiere. And I was seeing it on a Monday, and I knew the premiere was that Tuesday at that theater.
Camping out overnight.
And I was like, but that's tomorrow. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
They're in a different temporality.
They were really in a different. And then when it came out, they were like, does he die? And I was like, you want to know? Like, I was kind of shocked. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, no. He makes it. He's good. And
it's a movie about people making it.
It's true.
It's not a movie about people dying.
Yeah. Because when they announced Harry Styles was in this, I'm like, oh yeah, he'll get his head blown off like in scene 2, right? Like it'll just be like a brief hello. Nolan's not stupid. He gets that. Like,
or like what was it? The NSYNC members who were in Phantom Menace.
Oh,
remember
they
that?
are?
No, there's like.
I think they were cut out.
Were they cut out?
Yeah, but they were in it. That was a big thing where
they were like just cameos.
Right. I think it was Fatone and Lance Bass were like huge Phantom Menace heads.
Sure.
And then Lucas's daughter was into NSYNC. She was like,
it's
Dad,
Attack
please.
of the Clones, not Phantom Menace, to be clear.
Oh, was it Attack of the Clones? Okay.
Yes. Go on.
But were they cut out of it?
They were supposed to play Jedi Knights in the Geonosis battle.
Right.
They were given Jedi robes, shoes, and Padawan braids. And they fully shot 2 different scenes that were cut from the film. They were paired off. and I think just told like wave your lightsabers around.
Yeah, I
There's
say
plenty
this
of pictures of them on set, like plenty.
I say this as
You're a defender of the
I
prequels.
am a defender of I'm a defender of the prequels in general. I'm not a big fan of Phantom Menace. I do love Revenge of the Sith, and Attack of the Clones is like a roller coaster ride of scenes I hate and then scenes I love. It just veers back and forth
I would agree
drunkenly.
with that. Yeah.
But how fucking distracting would that movie have been if
God.
suddenly two members of NSYNC showed
Especially
up as
if, like,
Jedi
what if they were
Knights?
in Sith, like getting murdered, and
Yeah.
like Jimmy Smith is like,
That would've
no, yeah, that'd be good. That'd be great.
But that's if the Harry Styles thing felt weird, and it felt when it came out that he was in the movie, it almost felt like, okay, so he's doing this weird, like sort of adult blockbuster, this very kind of what will likely be a very somber movie produced at a very high budget with mostly a cast of like noted British, character actors and supporting roles and unknowns in the lead. Did Warner Brothers like push him to put Harry Styles in there for like a little bit of insurance? And then the
Maybe.
fear is he going to be really distracting? Like,
Right.
Are you never going to be able to get over the fact that he's Harry Styles? And especially for me, when the movie started and you see how much it is just this like sort of collection of chaos that's ongoing, it's like, is he going to stick out like a sore thumb? I was so impressed by how well he integrated himself
Oh yeah,
into the tapestry.
he's
the
totally
entire
belongs.
thing.
problem
He
at all.
totally belongs.
Yeah.
He does belong. And
It
he's-
took me a while before I realized, I've
Yeah.
seen Harry Styles. I'm not a fan, but like I've
Sure.
seen pictures of the guy.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd be able to recognize him, but it was actually like a couple of scenes in. I was like, oh, wait, that's Harry Styles.
Yeah.
I was more ready for him. I'm not really but I have like people in my life who are big Harry Styles
I mean, I
fans.
get
knew
it.
people who were hyped up
I
for
get
it.
Yeah.
And again, I was just like, oh, he's gonna just because in the trailer there's the scene of them in the boat with the
Right.
gunfire hitting, and I was like, that's it. He'll just they'll just pop him off there.
Yeah.
And I guess there was that shot of him drowning, which I think is in the first boat sinking scene.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I had this weird tension the first few scenes where I was like, he's not dying, and then
Uh-huh.
I just sort of settled in and he settles in. I think he's very.
yeah. I mean,
Nolan argues like, I didn't even know who he was, and
bullshit.
he just auditioned against other actors, and
Yeah.
he was best for the part. And it's like, all right,
Nolan,
I am the
fuck
most
off.
deliberate, careful filmmaker alive.
Yes.
I didn't
Somehow I
Google
was not
him.
aware of who this guy is.
Also, like father of teenage girls, British teenage girls.
This is
He
all
knows
fair.
who Harry Styles is.
You think he's ever talked to his kids though? No, I'm joking. I'm sure he's a very
all his
nice
movies.
father.
He's apparently a very devoted family
Yes,
man.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have like a cell phone, right? That's
Yeah.
No
that's
cell
the
phone, no
the
email.
thing
When he's
about him.
home, he's home.
Yeah,
right.
When
You
he
can't
steps
bother
off
him.
that set,
Yeah.
you better not
I-
come calling.
God,
Right.
I fantasize about that so much.
What about Blank Check? This is me texting you to be on Blank Check.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
what I'm saying. My
Griffin's giving me a real look right now.
my fantasy is that I could become as powerful as Christopher Nolan, so then not have to ever respond to anything.
Yeah.
And just be like, if I'm in a room, I'll talk to you.
Well,
Text
buddy,
messages stress me out.
one day, have fun doing that.
Yeah.
You're getting there.
That'll be the day that everyone stops putting up with me.
That is true.
Well, great. That is empirically not worth it.
Bye, Griffin.
Bye forever, Griffey.
All right. So, because we're not doing enough of the mole stuff, we're not doing enough of Harry and all of them. Because we have
Yeah.
the whole scene where the boat sinks with the jam, the bread and jam,
Which I love.
and the cups of tea.
So I saw this movie with past and future guest Sam Rigow.
Mm.
And he, when we saw them eating the toast with jam, we both laughed and turned to each other and we're like, I mean, it's so British that like,
sure.
Yeah.
on an American boat, they'd just be like, here's some fucking Wonder Bread, eat it. And then in this movie, you have to imagine that there's like some chef in the back, like furiously spreading just the right amount of jam. Like it's so perfectly
Uh-huh.
placed on each slice, but it like speaks to like the British sensibility where it's like, well, we shan't lose civility even in the face of danger.
Apparently, at the real Dunkirk, it was somewhat more chaotic.
I
Yeah.
can imagine.
But yeah, but I love that. But and the film is so visceral, and you get so into it. At least I did.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I really want some fucking
Yeah.
jam right
Yeah.
That's the
now.
thing. Also, you're stressed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been stressful so far. They
Yes.
get on the boat. I'm very stressed out because I'm like, this boat thing is a no-go. This is not going to work out for them.
Let's just go back to Dunkirk.
Yeah, right, guys. Just
don't
find
these
a
idiots
gazebo.
know they have 6 days left?
You know,
Didn't
like-
they read the title card?
Haven't they seen Atonement? There's the guy singing in the gazebo. Go in that gazebo. I'm sure it'll be fine.
This movie would be a lot shorter if they had seen Atonement.
You know,
like
then
if the characters in the film had seen it and been like, oh, this is just like Atonement.
It's like a bunch of people going to sing, and Joe Wright's really going to ostentatiously glide by them. It's going to be great.
None of this really happened. It's all conjecture.
Yes, exactly. And then that is a more visceral fear than like war for me is drowning is like a boat going under.
Well, yeah,
that's pretty impressive to stage the way he does.
yes.
And having come very close to drowning twice in my life, I can say
God,
that
twice?
it was, it's so compelling watching that and
Sure.
just so terrifying.
Especially because it's like immediately very dark. It's all just like flailing bodies.
Yeah.
And the door opening is like it's barely perceptible except that he's looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on, there's that scene when they're in the oil. There's one of the
That's the worst one.
No, I know. It's just like I said this once about Titanic too, but like, boat sinking movies are really just films built around a collection of terrible ways to die.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like that one guy who is, one of the guys on the, I guess the trawler, who is, everything is burning on the surface of the water. So
and he's like hiding underneath, but he can't stay under.
And he's just like but he's going to drown, so he has to actually surface and then just burns alive.
Well, I have spent a lot of idle time as an obsessive, fatalistic person weighing in my mind whether I would rather burn to death or drown.
Okay.
Like I was like, those are the 2 ways I would least like to
They
die.
seem rough.
Which one would
Sure.
be worse? And then Nolan's like, hold my beer.
Burning and drowning.
Well, what if both? What if both at the same time?
¿Por qué no los dos?
And it's like, wait, but no, one negates the other. And he's like, no, oil in the water. You are drowning in fire.
Yeah.
I'm on the record as loving a wet.
You're a
Ben
wet,
likes
you're a
wet
wet
movies.
guy. Soaking wet Benny.
And so, this is a slick flick, but the oil.
It's an oil slick flick. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good water. It's bad water.
It's bad water. It's the bad water.
You're in oil, the bad kind, the bad kind.
They need Kevin Costner to come in with his oil machine. Do you remember
Or with
that?
his gills.
Yeah. No, but do you remember during
Yeah.
the BP oil spill when he went to Congress and he's like, I have put $10 million into a machine that can separate oil from water.
I do remember
and
that.
the
keep
government
wondering
was
what
like,
happened
we're
to
good. We don't need it.
What happened to it? Because I've actually, for some reason, not a month goes by that I don't occasionally think, whatever happened to Kevin Costner and his turning oil into water?
Yeah, we could be using that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of applications for that thing.
Yeah.
Come
Come on, Kenny.
But
But he's like,
unfortunately-
no.
Yeah.
McFarland USA gets a wide
Yeah.
release, and then I release
For-
the blueprints.
First, I have to teach these Mexican kids how to run.
Yeah. But the thing about that movie
He's made
is,
some choices.
the thing about that movie is his name is Mr. White because he's a white person. I don't know if you've seen it, but his name is Mr. White.
I didn't hate that movie.
I don't either. I
It
think
was-
the movie's kind of solid.
Well, it was actually okay, right? And
It's Nikki Caro, right?
Nikki Caro, yeah.
She's a good director.
I know.
Yeah.
I
And
didn't really mean to rag
it came
on
like a
McFarland
month
USA.
after the other one, which was terrible. Black or White, was that what?
Yes,
it was?
that's
yes,
the one. That's the one
yes.
that I really wanted to rag on. But McFarland USA is a funnier title
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's just such an uncommercial title.
Well, and also, do you know that Kevin Costner wholly financed Black or White?
Yes, I know. We've talked about it, I
Oh,
believe,
really?
on this
He read the
podcast.
script and no
Griffin
one would
worked with
make
Kevin
it.
Costner.
Oh, okay.
Yes, on draft
On
day.
the oil machine.
Yeah.
I worked in R&D.
I thought he was good in Hidden Figures too. I sort of forget that he's in that movie, but yeah.
He's a good actor.
I love him
Yeah.
as an actor.
He's-
I will say though, like watching Hidden Figures, he kind of outpits Pitt in terms of eating in every scene.
He does eat a lot.
And I just could totally see him, like when they were blocking every scene, being like, I need something else. Someone hand me a bagel. Like he's one of those actors who's just like always trying to find other stuff to do and not play up too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was the one where it feels like they let him do all of it.
Yeah.
Give me more chewing gum.
It's great.
He needs to be. He somebody needs to kind of come in and do something special with him.
He's so powerful.
A
Like he's
Nolan
such
or
a
a
fucking
Tarantino.
powerful movie star. Oh, he'd be so good in a Nolan movie. He was
Wasn't he cast in a Tarantino
Django,
movie?
and then he dropped out.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was a character that then they folded in. I think they removed the character after he dropped out.
Oh, okay. Was it going to be like Will Smith and Kevin Costner in Django?
Yeah.
And then, you know.
Yeah, exactly. He was supposed to be, I think, an earlier antagonist.
Maybe, yeah, he could have done the Don Johnson part.
Yeah, but it was a different part. That was the thing. Don Johnson had already been cast. Then they cast Kevin Costner.
We are redeeming way too many, aging white actors in this part.
It's funny that Nolan's
you can have Don Johnson or you can have Kevin Costner.
a flyer, considering that he went for Eric Roberts and all those guys. Yeah,
Right. No, I think what happened was they were like, after Costner dropped out, Tarantino was like, well, we just removed his character and like we gave some of the dialogue to Walton Goggins.
Right.
Like Walton Goggins is carrying some of the weight that his character used to have. Very, very, very interesting.
So back over to the sea. I want to take us to the sea. You've got Killian Murphy. They pick up Killian Murphy because we should talk about that performance and that whole segment of the movie, which a few people I know struggled with that more because it is the most non-realistic, I guess. It's the most sort of fanciful seems too like a weird word for, but you know, like this
surreal.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. The weird circumstance of him like being knocked down the stairs. It feels more Hollywood. I guess.
You mean the Georgie stuff?
Yeah.
I thought you meant finding him on the boat.
No, that's all good because
which I love. That's like a Powell Pressburger moment.
Exactly,
so
him just sitting on and like
the propeller is just turning, and you hear the propeller sound in the back.
And he's so fucking good in this. We've talked about him a lot in this miniseries.
It's a minimal Nolan miniseries.
Movies. But he's doing this very odd kind of like, there's something sort of heightened in an old Hollywood way about his performance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he's playing a totally broken, deconstructed version of an old Hollywood matinee idol in a weird way. Yeah.
That scene where he says, where he tells Mark Rylance to turn the boat around, it's so well done. Like physically, it's such a great bit of acting because he kind of does this thing with his hand. He's kind of flicking and pointing. He's like, turn this boat around immediately. Right. But he's also concave as he does so. He's just so broken. But there's just that little bit of kind of officer training. Turn this boat around immediately. And I also, it's also so touching because once you do kind of get that quote unquote flashback and you see him on the lifeboat earlier, then you sort of realize what this guy has been through because he was on, we know essentially he was blown up twice out of the water. Yeah. He was on that boat that was, that went down, so which is why he was on that lifeboat. Yeah. So presumably he made it back on shore, and then he probably wound up on another boat, which was then blown up again.
Right.
And now he's being picked up by these guys, and the first thing he realizes is, oh my God, these assholes are going back to Dunkirk.
And it takes him a second.
He has no idea, because he doesn't know. Nobody knows anything in this movie, and he does not know that the boats have been, requisitioned or activated.
No, why would he think about that? The civilian fleet is such a
these
ludicrous
idiots
concept.
are going to Dunkirk.
Yeah, and they sort of conceal it they lock him in the cabin, which seems like that's a poor strategic decision.
But the kid does.
The kid does.
But you totally get why he does.
No, you do. He's frightening.
Right.
But it's also, I actually love that bit with the kid kind of contemplating whether to lock him in, and then locking him in. In any other movie, I feel like, he would be locked in, and then there would be some sort of struggle. But here, he's trying to get out, and Mark Rylance comes down, and he's just like, "What are you doing? Why the hell did you lock him in?
Let him out." And he's already gone out. That right. That's the climactic moment. That's where he shoves Georgie.
Yeah. Right.
Poor Georgie.
Poor Georgie. What a good cat.
He's kind of an idiot.
But it really is, though. It is such a nightmare when you put yourself in Killian Murphy's shoes. Mm-hmm. Everything that's happened, and then he finds out they're going back to Dunkirk, and then they lock him in.
Yeah,
right.
No, it's true.
At that point, he's ready to kill everybody.
Well, that's the thing. That
especially considering
moment,
what a gentle environment it is.
Right.
To anyone else, the Moonstone.
They're whiz poppers and fuzz wimples.
Yeah, exactly. There are farting corgis on that boat, and yet. But I think also, especially to Brits, but to Americans too, the idea of being shell shocked is such an abstract concept we're all aware of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, they're quiet. It's what happens to you. People don't really, and it doesn't get dug into in movies. It's hard to dig into it in movies.
I agree.
Because it's such an unambiguous thing too.
Right. And in addition to the fact that Killian Murphy is such a good physical actor, I think he's really good at harnessing this certain kind of squirminess that makes him really well suited for, like the moments like what the one you outlined where he's sort of contradicting through his body everything he's saying with his mouth are really fascinating. But also he is such a pretty man. And he has such stunning eyes, and to watch those eyes just be dead, and his face kind of look broken, without him doing any obvious contortion, it's a stunning image to see. Like when they first pull him out, and you're like, oh fuck, this guy is just completely broken inside.
There's no hiding from this.
He is a beautiful man, and that is why the first time they worked together, Christopher Nolan covered his face with a sack.
On his head. That's what you got to do.
Put the sack on, Killian.
I mean, look, who's got the best mouth in Hollywood? Tom Hardy. Sure. What am I going to do? Cover that mouth every time. Put a mask over the mouth.
Not in Inception. He's pursing his lips in Inception.
Yeah, that's true.
So what else should we talk about? I mean, there's the tugboat scene or whatever. The way where the after the sinking, they hit Tommy and Harry Styles and various other characters end up in that boat.
Oh,
to take shelter.
You're talking about the spy sequence where they're trying to figure out.
The trawler. It's a trawler, technically. Yeah.
A Dutch trawler.
Which is claustrophobic, and they're getting shot at.
It's horrible. I mean, that's the scene where I really panic.
Yeah, that one flipped me out.
Well, it's also if you remember, it's intercut. Well, it's intercut with a couple of things, but when the water is starting to come in, it's intercut with the Collins drowning or all nearly drowning in his plane.
Right, that's intercut with that sequence.
And that's actually something else that Nolan does in this movie that is, because you mentioned the idea of when you first saw it, you thought, oh, is he going to kind of really rigidly stick to this structure?
Sure, the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Yeah, and instead what he does is he almost cuts around sort of thematic elements, right? So that's a scene where he's cutting around this idea of water. And there's that other scene.
Stuck in the water.
Yeah, and then there's that other scene where the Moonstone is trying to avoid a plane while another plane is attacking, Branagh and those guys at the mall.
Yes.
Right, and then there's another one. There's actually another one earlier that I caught the last time I saw it, and I can't remember what it is exactly, but there is another moment where in all three different temporalities
together.
All three different temporalities, it's a kind of a turning moment where I think it's when Tom Hardy first sees in his rear view mirror. Sure. I guess he has one on a plane.
Yeah, why not? Who needs to see behind you?
Where he sees the plane headed towards the minesweeper, which kind of eventually we later realized the kind of central big sequence at the end,
final oil set piece, right? Yes,
but he
he's grouping things together.
He's grouping things together. So the structure
I really
is
like
almost
that scene where the Moonstone avoids
it's
it.
an almost symphonic structure.
Good word.
Which is why, and then all these other little things come into play because at the end, I mean, the very last bit of sort of suspense in the film is this tiny little moment of, are that plane's landing wheels going to come out in time?
Yeah.
While the Winston Churchill speech is being read.
Right.
So
and he's pumping it out. And finally also Zimmer's score is chilling out.
Yeah.
And has become melodic, which it has not been for the whole movie. For the whole movie, it's this weird sort of like
it's like a dog whistle. It's like an escalating dog whistle.
It never quite completes a musical sentence until the end. Right.
And then finally he has that and I mean, and also you get that shot of Hardy's face afterwards, which is
it's like tantric sex.
Exactly, that's a real treat for the audience. Did
Sting actually score this movie?
Yeah, he did.
It's like sorbet after a 15-course meal. Oh,
no, but a meal where they keep they're sort of like rattling the plates around and they're like throwing the food at you.
It's like sorbet after a food fight.
But like then there are these moments in the movie. It's hard for Nolan because I think like when you have the slightly plottier segments like Georgie getting pushed down the stairs, or Harry Styles turning on the French guy all of a sudden, and there's more dialogue, and there's more like it's not just a sensory experience, and we have to think about character motivations. I don't think these scenes are bad.
Yeah,
I just think that like they are somewhat jarring.
Yeah.
That's a complaint I've heard registered that I get more than the complaint of like, I don't get how the timelines match up. Sure. I don't really have a problem with it. I'm more just throwing that out there. I feel like we're all big Dunkirk fans, so.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, just the fucking, the satisfaction you get when the timelines start to merge. You know, I mean, as you said, symphonic. It's this crescendo where suddenly like everything's in harmony. It's pretty powerful. Like it's this thing that he's capable of doing that I think very few filmmakers are, and especially very few working at this kind of scale within the studio system, which is he can get an emotional response out of the mere craft of what he's executing, not even the content of what he's communicating.
Yeah.
But it's that same thing that happens in like Inception, where you just have these like emotional responses to like, oh my God, these fucking 12 things happening at the same time, all this different movement and the music swelling, all these different images that now have this combined kind of power.
Yeah.
There is a weird kind of like perverse giddiness that comes from like, oh shit, Hardy is now there. Branagh is there. We haven't talked about Branagh at all.
Yeah.
He's great.
You know, like
Home.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing exactly what they hired him to do, which is be Kenneth Branagh, deliver the minimal exposition we have, and just be this pillar of fucking moral integrity.
He's basically doing the same part he did in the Olympics opening ceremony with Danny Boyle. He's basically just the guy in the middle of it all.
Yes.
You know.
He's got an ace up his sleeve. He's got a signature move, which he fucking owns. He slams down the table a couple different times, every time just as effective, which is slowly taking off his cap while turning his head to look off at the horizon.
He does it like 3 times.
Boy, does he kill it, though. Like, if I had a move that good, I would do it fucking 12 times.
Like he should play Iago again and just try taking his cap off through, midway through a soliloquy.
Some could argue that doing it 3 times is gilding the lily. And I would argue he actually shows an amazing amount of restraint in not doing it 20 times.
He doesn't go into the ocean of Ham.
He does not.
In this movie.
And it's right there.
Do you know about the River of Ham?
What is the river?
Please tell the river.
When Kenneth Branagh was directing
Thor 1.
Ray Stevenson, who of course played Volstagg, our favorite character in the MCU, Volstagg.
Sure. One of the Warriors 3.
The jolly meat-loving member of the Warriors 3.
Yeah, not the subtlest character, to be fair.
He's a fat guy who is always eating meat with his bare hands.
He's sort of the Brad Pitt of the Warriors 3, right? He's the Rusty, that's the character.
Yes. Branagh was directing him. And Stevenson said, I don't know about that. It feels like it might, I'm worried about dipping a toe into the river.
No. Did he even say, I think Branagh's the one who says it.
It said it might be hammy.
Right.
And he said, trust me, with this performance, you want to dip a toe into the river of Ham.
River of Ham. I think that's his phrase.
And then Stevenson said it's a good river. And Branagh said, I've swam in that river many a time.
It is a man-made river which I have built.
I built it. But he's like he's knowing exactly how much paprika to put on the sandwich in this performance, which could be very overcooked and overcranked. I think if you're too aware.
No, you know what? I should give Ray Stevenson credit. I Googled it. Ray Stevenson said, you were right.
I was right.
You know what? I'll dip my toe into the River of Ham. And Branagh said, trust me, I've swam in that river many times.
Okay.
You'd enjoy it.
Right. Stevenson's the one who coined the term.
Yes, sorry.
But Branagh then revealed that it was his river all along.
Right. It was the Kenneth Branagh Memorial River.
Right.
But he's not really hamming it up. He's hamming it up in more of a Mrs. Miniver way, which is sort of like, he's just his upper lip is so stiff. You get all
his
riled
non-existent upper lip.
It's true. He's a thin-lipped man.
He's a thin-lipped man. But this is the kind of performance that's, I feel like, exceptionally tricky to pull off, where you have to carry weight in a film representing something more than just like playing the character organically in like a behavioral way. You have to represent things and you have to carry the audience along. And I feel like I've seen actors who are too aware of that responsibility and lose the human element. And I've also seen actors who I think are so concerned with playing it human that they don't fully rise to the occasion of what the movie's asking them to do.
It's kind of a perfect balance.
He's like right in the strike zone. And James Darcy listens to him.
James Darcy's great too.
He's solid, but he isn't asked to do much other than
he's listening.
Nod. Yes.
Well, and he says like, don't they want the boats? Or I don't know. He has to ask the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not? Destroyers. Where are the destroyers? Where are the Air Force?
There is quite a bit of exposition that Branagh goes through in the film. I mean, it's,
I didn't
it's
actually
all
on him pretty much.
Yeah, right? I didn't actually catch most of it the first time.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't have a problem with like hearing the
things.
dialogue. It's more that you're just so wrapped up in what's happening that you stop paying attention
At
to
that point
dialogue.
in the movie, it's hard to process words. Like you've gotten so into the movie's wavelength,
Yeah.
which is all this sort of movement and bombast and this sort of paranoia of scanning the frame for any possible threats, that when suddenly just two people talking on a pier, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and he's actually offering a lot of information. Sorry.
Yes.
He is. No, I mean, the Air Force, the Tom Hardy scenes, I'll admit, the second time I saw it, it was clearer, especially what's being said over the radio.
Yeah, I could barely understand what
in
you
the
were saying.
IMAX, I struggled. They're just kind of like, the second time I was like,
You're
oh, that's Michael Caine.
bloody doors off.
Right, exactly. But apart from that, I didn't really have, I don't know.
I haven't.
It's not a dialogue heavy movie.
It's not a dialogue heavy movie. I mean, I often don't understand, at least 25-30% of what I hear in movies as far as dialogue is concerned.
And that's
this one, it just didn't.
So you don't pay attention.
Yeah,
You
I don't
listen
pay
to what
attention.
anyone says.
Basically, I am.
Have you ever
I am
seen a
what's
movie?
wrong with movie going today.
You're just taking pictures of the screen with your phone.
Exactly. I just want to know if Harry lives or dies.
Yeah. He lives.
He lives.
They make it off of the horrible trawler.
Right, where he's the one who becomes very paranoid and very
That's what I'm saying. Like
accusatory.
It's not like it's a difficult turn to understand, but it's more like I'm like, oh, I have to suddenly think about this as a human being in a different way, rather than just sort of like this person who desperately wants to survive in a very basic way.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with the scene. It's more just it's plotty.
Yeah. It's also the dialogue is a little floored at this moment, right? Because there's that line he says, I bet he doesn't even speak a word of English, and if he did, it'd be slathered in sauerkraut.
Right. And you're like, all right, he's German. You're saying he's German. I mean, Jesus Christ, economy here. There's people shooting outside.
But I like that he isn't. Like I like that he's not German, that he's not a spy, that he's just like a French kid.
He's a poor French kid trying to get on the English boat.
Who's just trying to survive like the rest of them, and in the process has ended up doing a lot of good.
Sure.
Has helped their men a lot,
Yeah.
Like his initial instincts were totally based in cowardice.
Yeah,
but now he's
a cowardice we can all understand.
Right, and he is risen to the occasion.
Yeah, and he's also with Harry Styles. I mean, his character, there's a strange and touching quality to his character. He's such a, he's a guy who doesn't really think very hard about these things. I mean, this guy isn't talking. He must be a spy. And then later on, he's also the one who really has to kind of express this notion, well, we lost. We had to evacuate. We're all going to be humiliated. Right? And I mean, he's the one who kind of has to express these kind of very basic, very base emotions that are then kind of turned around and undercut and redeemed by the movie. Yeah.
Which is why it helps having someone with like a bit of a rock star swagger like that sort of movie star confidence and that look and everything, because it's a guy who needs to be completely convinced that his first impressions are 100% correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
even when he figures out he's French, he's still annoyed at him.
Right.
Which is, at that point, you'd think like, all right, well, let's drop it.
And as a character, it almost feels like he thinks he's the lead of the movie. Like he's making these decisions as if like I'm the leader everyone's turning to, looking for an answer.
I think where Styles is actually good, like rather than just like blending in well, is that's the scene on the train at the end where he's so ashamed. In this way he can't articulate. He thinks they're all going to be greeted as cowards because they basically ran away. I mean, in a very elaborate way. And he's struggling to process like that they are being greeted as heroes.
Yeah. And you really need somebody, and that's why I think his performance is really valuable here, because you really need somebody to express that very clearly and very compellingly, so that when it turns out that the guys are just trying to give them a beers, so that emotional turn really resonates. Otherwise, it was just kind of confusing, and we didn't quite know how they felt. And then suddenly it would still work, I think, but it just wouldn't work nearly as well. Like that's
very effective. Moment.
Yeah, that emotion of humiliation really has to be expressed very clearly at that moment.
Can't stand that John Nolan doesn't look at him, even though he's just blind. That's John Nolan from Following. He's in like all his movies.
Is he also blind in The Prestige? Is he in The Prestige as a blind man?
There is a blind guy, but it's not that blind guy. I mean, I think of John Nolan. He's always on the board in Batman Begins, in the Batman movie. He's in all the Batman movies. He's always like, you can't do. In Dark Knight Rises, he says like that's outrageous, and then Pat Leahy, the senator from Vermont, is sitting next to him, and he's like, I'll tell you something about Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of those movies. He's like an old English guy who's his uncle.
Yeah, cool.
He's great. Sorry.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
Dunkirk.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty emotionally
God, I'm
affecting. I mean,
stressed out
because it is.
thinking
Yeah,
about
it's
Dunkirk.
a stressful movie. When you said like the scuttlebutt about like will Nolan do a horror movie, and it's like this feels like
This is
the
very
closest he could make to a horror movie. This is sort of in his wheelhouse, which
I
is
think
like
he's even said that. I think he's even
Yeah.
said it's not really a war movie; it's a horror movie or something. Like
because
that.
it's
kind
just
of-
a
because the-
survival movie.
Yeah, but and also the enemy is so hard to grasp at, and like it feels like almost it's horrifying the way the enemy is acting.
Well, and there's
makes sense.
that
Rather
line.
than like we have no
right.
personal perspective on them.
There's that quote that I'm gonna fuck up now. That's like all war movies are propaganda because movies make war look cool.
Yes.
In
Yeah,
one way or another,
Yes,
there's
yes.
a sort of heroism that happens to whichever side you're leaning on.
Right.
and-
Most World War II movies, people are like, well, that was the good one. That was
Right.
Yeah,
We were doing something right there.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. There are a couple of that don't.
No,
and,
sure,
and,
sure.
And it is interesting the responses people will have to those.
Right.
And
But
this
then
is,
even then, you would argue that those movies are saying like are propaganda in an anti-war way. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
in some kind of way. It's either the brutality of war, or but this is weirdly one of the few war movies I've ever seen that it feels completely apolitical because it's just about here are people in this situation trying to survive. Like that's all it's concerned with, not the
Yeah.
larger aspirations of what they're fighting for or who they're trying to survive being attacked by
Yeah.
or any of that. And in a weird way, like as much as I don't like war movies, I used to have this like thought when I was like a kid and I would like doodle movie ideas in my notebook when I wasn't paying
sound like a
attention
cool
in math
kid.
class. Real cool kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, the only kind of war movie that I feel like I would ever like be able to come up with is just that. It's just a movie of one person trying to survive being in this situation.
Or a horse.
Or a horse.
A war horse, if
A
you
war
will.
horse, if
Maybe
you
you
will.
can make Warhorse too.
This movie
Hardly
is kind
Horsen.
of
I don't know.
hardly horse.
Hyper Horse.
Hyper horse.
War Horse 2, The Widowmaker.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Let's do it.
But it is like it's a very tense movie. It's a very experiential movie, and then that final scene where it's like you haven't even considered the emotional context of what they've gone through. You haven't even considered how they'd process all of this. The sense that they'd be ashamed is like a totally new idea.
To us, we're like, why? Of course not. What are you talking about? Like, you
Right.
just went through the worst horror. Like,
Yeah.
we're all so humbled by the very idea of it.
But that's the other thing I think it speaks to is like, right, these kids are so young.
Sure.
Like these are like young boys in this situation, so they don't know how they're going to be like taken in once they return home because they don't really understand what they've been through.
Yeah.
Which I find very like profound, like emotionally devastating.
Absolutely.
But
And there's also, the film is very good about sort of keeping you in the dark at these various points to sort of mimic the way that the characters themselves don't
Sure.
really know
Right.
what's happening.
Wouldn't know
Yeah.
what was going
And
on.
another thing about that is visually something that always jumps out at me in the movie is towards the end when we're in Tom Hardy's plane and we see this shot of the plane flying and you see the town of Dunkirk from the sky finally. And it's just fascinating because it's like this like pleasant little resort town.
Yeah,
It's
right.
the
And
only
I
moment
visited
when
Dunkirk.
you
It's a nice seaside
Yeah.
town.
yeah,
yes.
and it's the only moment when you kind of get that. It almost looks modern. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
there's some buildings there, and I'm like, that does not look like a building that would have existed in 1940. For all I know, maybe it's not. But
Yeah.
I also find that so touching. The way that right at the end the film kind of opens up very briefly
Mhm.
Yeah.
to just give you a little bit more context.
Right, because everyone just thinks of a beach when they think of the
Yeah.
Battle of Dunkirk or the evacuation, whatever you want to call it.
Can we talk about the last couple Hardy shots? I know we've just invoked
Do it.
the
No,
fact
fine.
that
We're
he takes
wrapping
the
up,
mask
so,
off.
you know,
Setting up the sequel.
get
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
you want. It's true. I mean,
Still
Hardy.
like 17.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hardy as prisoner of war, and for some reason he has like a mask on his face. I don't know. Whatever. They put like
That's
a
Fury Road.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's in a cage and it's just his eye is exposed.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those cages where you can just pull apart the little bar. Yeah.
His next performance.
Please.
He's going to be wearing a morph suit, and the only part of his skin that's going to be visible is his pointer finger.
Great. What do you want to say about the last
Or a
Hardy
barrel.
shots?
What if he's in a barrel and
That'd
he
be
just
good.
sticks his
That'd be
finger
good if he
out of
was
the
in a
barrel
barrel.
and wiggles it?
Yeah, he plays like a whiskey maker who gets trapped. in a
Yeah.
barrel.
No, I just think there's something to. It's almost like this Nolan thing of like take something away from people and make them realize how much they cared about it in the first place. You know, the fact that the biggest star of the movie is wearing a mask the entire time in a plane, physically constricted, right? Set within very narrow confines in terms of even the timeline of what he's in.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, once we have the sort of relief of, oh shit, Zimmer's swelling, the landing wheels have come out, you know, I don't know how to fucking describe stuff, right? He's pulling the
landing
thing.
gear. The
landing gear, you know, is set. He gets on the beach, and then everything sort of like widens out, like you were saying. Like you finally get Hardy in these wider shots where he's a smaller element, and he takes the mask off, and here it is. Like he's Tom Hardy. He's got the best face in the world.
Sure.
And now he's going to give you like a full face reaction shot, and to immediately undercut that with like, oh no, they got him.
They got him.
They got him.
Yeah, he set his plane on fire.
Right. He sets his plane on fire. That shot of him looking at the burning plane, I find very
I mean, he's
powerful.
well lit. It's very warming in general.
It's very warming, and then you see the guy swarming. I just think it's like
a nice red
glow.
glow.
He's not like a legendary war hero, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who saved these people, and then he got caught, and now he's just gonna go through a lot of bad shit.
Sure.
Like he's just some guy who was doing his job in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to say before we play the box office game? I mean, you should remember the
Yeah,
box
it's kind of
office.
easy.
Your closing thoughts? You've said a lot.
I've said a lot.
You've said a lot of great things.
I've said too much.
No,
I do think
that's crazy.
I do think that there are a couple of these little things in the film that you know where they do provide a little bit of additional historical context, like the whole bit with the Royal Engineers building these makeshift piers with the trucks.
Oh yeah, that is
which
actually an
we come
incredible
to-
sight.
Yeah, which we come to, which was actually one of the main, you know, one of the big things about the Dunkirk evacuation
Right.
was that they built these, you know, makeshift piers so that, you know, some of the boats could approach. And you know, the film actually, like the first time I saw it, I didn't notice that at all.
Right.
And then the second time I saw it, oh my God, this is actually a through line in the movie. We come back to it several times, and there's that like very sort of self-satisfied shot of the head of the, I guess he's like the head of the Royal Engineers there,
Sure.
an officer just kind of, you know, beaming at their handiwork, you know, after they've built that pier. I love that.
It's good. That pier is crazy. Yeah, and there's that sort of triumphant, swelly moment he
Yeah.
gives you there when the boats are arriving.
Yeah.
And then Hardy fights off the last German plane
Yes.
before just gliding down. Like he finally, there is like a lot of release at
Yeah.
the end there.
I read in an interview that Nolan said his pitch to Warner Brothers after he had put away his little tin planes was he said, I want to make VR without the headset.
Sure.
Which, like, the very didactic interpretation of that is like, well, the way he used IMAX, I'm wanting to put the camera in the plane and really kind of immerse you in the situation. But it is a movie that, like, is constructed in terms of its use of every single element, the way it tells the story, what it shows you, what it doesn't show you, to just put you in the headspace of these people trying to survive these moments that you're catching them in.
Yeah.
And I think, like, on that score, he like really succeeded. I mean, he's made a very weird movie.
It's a weird movie.
It's a weird movie, and I think it's very much an unexpected type of film. As much as it's a blank check movie, there is an astonishing amount of restraint and reserve in it.
Right.
And that he's choosing only to really tackle a couple different goals in a very slight kind of three slices of this larger story and all of that.
Yeah.
We said in our, when we were in the first chunk of our miniseries, the first four, the first three Nolan movies that are these neo-noirs.
Right.
That, like, it's kind of weird that he made the shift to being this big blockbuster filmmaker because it feels like he could have been this for the rest of his life. And it's, like, sort of sad to think he probably won't make a movie like this again. Like, he's just going to feel the need to escalate and to escalate and to escalate. But this movie is this weird case of him, like, going bigger and smaller at the same time.
Yeah.
And it makes me very excited about his future if he's going to keep on taking risks like this and keep on going, like, sure, I'll, like, play within the genres
Right, and keep having them pay off, too.
Right.
That's the really sort of triumphant thing about it.
It's not just going to be just, increasingly grandiose pictures.
Right.
Right. He's not going to have
Yeah.
like
Just sort of like-
Cleopatra.
Yeah, which is sort of what happened to James Cameron, I think.
Yeah.
And I love
Yes.
James Cameron, but it is very much a...
He has
I mean,
to be
he's-
bigger every
Yeah,
time.
and he is one of these guys who always says, well, I'm thinking about maybe doing a smaller movie next.
Right.
Yeah.
And it never
okay,
happened.
James.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Right. And then
I
he's
guess-
like, but at the same time, 3D with no glasses? Can we do it?
Yeah, right. But that's like, I feel like a lot of the filmmakers we covered, there's a bit of like, you can't go home again,
Yeah.
And either what they turn into eventually is still good, or they lose their way, and then when they try to go small again, they get fucked.
Yeah.
But they kind of ultimately, in one way or another, get away from whatever they were originally doing, because success kind of becomes this cage, this
Yeah.
trapping, the expectations and everything. But like Nolan seems to be interested in figuring out how to make the biggest movies he can, but not feeling burdened by the need to make them epics. To not like self-justify their size by pumping them full of self-importance or narrative bloat or any sort of things that I think can really ultimately like sink interesting directors.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie.
You can definitely imagine the guy who made Memento making this movie.
Yes.
Yes. Ben, wait. Sorry. Do you have anything you want to say? You haven't talked much.
Yeah. Well, so this is a dead husband movie, right?
Uh-huh.
So
You're
there's
saying
that.
all the men who die in this movie have wives.
Yeah, more or
Presumably.
less.
Okay.
Sure.
So you got that element.
Right.
Wanted to point that out, but did the lights stay down for during the credits at your screenings?
I think so. I don't know. I think so. Why?
No bloopers. No outtakes.
I mean,
That's what I thought was
There
going
is
on.
there is a sequence, if you stay until after the credits, there's a sequence where the entire cast and crew sings Build Me Up Buttercup.
Now that I would have liked to have seen.
I would like to see a Christopher Nolan comedy.
Yeah.
I know that the accusation is that he's humorless, and I completely disagree with
his
that.
movies can be funny.
I think
It's hard to imagine a.
An out and out, like a
Right.
comedy of manners
Yes,
directed by
like-
Christopher
Well,
Nolan.
but isn't that isn't that what happened with Coppola? Basically, he was like, "I'm going to make a romantic musical comedy next,"
Right.
and then
Yeah.
that was when it all came crashing down.
It was,
Yeah.
and I guess maybe. I mean, that would be the actual challenge for him.
Yeah.
If he could mount like some sort of like big, like let's play the box office game.
Sure. I was going to say musical would be interesting to see him do, but he would have to pick, it would have to be a Les Mis-esque kind of
Sure,
musical
like a
tragedy.
sweeping,
I don't think he could
epic
do Anything Goes. Like, I don't think.
robot musical.
Tars musical.
Tars the musical?
Mm-hmm.
He could do a musical.
Dancing with the Tars?
Dancing with guitars.
One of Stanley Kubrick's greatest regrets was apparently not being able to make a musical.
Sure.
Like that was
That
the
would've
one
been
genre he
fascinating.
really loved
Yeah.
and really wanted to tackle. And you can kind of see it in all his movies. I mean,
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange has several musical scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
2001 is sort
yeah.
of like a weird musical. But he made a great comedy. Nolan doesn't have that on his
Yeah.
belt yet.
Yeah.
But why doesn't he make? Well, number one at the box office on the weekend of July 21st
Was Dunkirk.
was
It was
Dunkirk
the movie
with $50
Dunkirk.
million.
Good opener.
What was number two at the box office? It was a comedy opening against it, counter programming.
This should be a slam dunk for me, which would make it a boring segment, but I'm so overtired
Yeah,
and
you
so
don't
jet
remember.
lagged.
It's the biggest comedy of 2017.
Girls Trip?
Girls Trip.
Yeah.
Now, could Nolan make a Girls Trip? Could he step into Malcolm D. Lee's shoes?
Probably not.
No, probably not. Right? Not everyone can do everything.
Can I stand for Girls Trip for a second?
It's a good movie.
Good movie. Everyone talks about Tiffany Haddish.
She's great.
Well deserved. Regina Hall has been doing such fucking consistently good work for like 18 years.
She's a very underrated actress.
a
because
really
she is
crazy
not
underrated
rated.
actress. Right. And I just feel like I know a lot of people who saw Girls Trip and were like, who is that lead woman? I'm like, you've seen her in 18 things.
Yeah,
she's been in
around
like
forever.
she's been in a bunch of crazy successful movies, equally good at supporting and leading roles.
Mm-hmm.
She's got that end monologue that she delivers like in her keynote speech. That's like 8 minutes long of like straight talk. I just think she's a very good actress.
What did you think of Girls Trip?
I still haven't seen Girls.
It's
Worth
really good.
seeing.
I really want to.
Number three was a big Marvel movie.
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton the movie.
Michael Keaton is the movie man, is the Vulture Man.
Yes.
He's a Trump voter.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Spider-Man? It's kind
I
of a
was
boring
not
box
fan.
office, actually.
I was not a fan of Spider-Man.
Yeah, you actually didn't like it.
I actually did not
Right,
like
I
it, and I
remember
was
now.
surprised
Yeah.
because
Because I had a good time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a TV show to me, but I had a good
That's
time.
my exact feeling. I
Yeah.
feel like I watched 3 episodes of Spider-Man the TV show.
Sure.
It just felt kind of inconsequential to me,
Yeah.
but like inconsequential. But watching it, I was enjoying it immensely.
Sure.
when I went to see, I took my son to see Spider-Man, and actually, I took my son to see Spider-Man, and the day before, I'd taken him to see Baby Driver, which I
Sure.
probably shouldn't admit to since that's an R-rated movie. But and it was interesting seeing how, both films are hits.
Yes.
Baby Driver's made like $100 million. And
No, it's
Spider-Man's
a
made like
legit hit,
400
Baby
or
Driver.
some
Yeah.
absurd
Yeah.
amount of money. But it was interesting, like the crowd at both places. The crowd at Baby Driver was totally wrapped. I mean,
Yes.
they were just locked into that movie. Nobody left to go to the bathroom or to get more popcorn or whatever. Spider-Man movie was more packed.
Mhm.
I mean, it was sold out screening, and it was like a carnival. I mean, half the people in that room were not really watching the whole movie. I mean, people were just. I sat in one of those kind of, like I had the passage to get to the exit was right in front of me.
Right.
So I could see all the people leaving.
Yeah.
It's just constantly, I constantly had to keep moving my legs just so.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me, these people, they don't actually, half the time, they're not even really watching. Like it's
Yeah.
Spider-Man, it's the
It's a
Marvel movie.
bummer.
You just have to go because
It's almost
that's
like
the thing
it's like
you do.
voting. It's like a
Yeah.
civil obligation.
Yeah, it
You're
really
right.
is. And the marketing genius behind creating movies where it's seen as an obligation. Like
Yeah.
you're not even really having fun.
But put
You're
your time
just
in
kind
because
of-
it's going to pay off for the next one anyway.
Yeah, that's the movie. It's opening this week, and the kids want to see it, so
Sure.
you go see it. And it was fine. It passed the time. You don't actively want your 2.5 hours back.
Right.
But nothing special was done with it. Nothing. I mean, it's just so depressing.
It's weird to me how many people I talk to who say like I only go see Marvel movies in theaters, and it's not because they're Marvel fans. They're just like I don't really like seeing things in theaters.
No,
I
it's sort of
mostly
the
watch
event.
stuff on Netflix.
But it's funny
like,
because
I feel like I
movies
gotta
are
go see
often
those.
visually uninteresting.
Right.
So drab.
Yeah.
Drab.
But hey, man.
See, my weird thing with Spider-Man was I really liked all the Peter Parker stuff. I liked all the high school stuff. I don't think it amounted to much, but when it was operating just as kind of like a teen dramedy, I was really locked into it.
Sure.
Anytime Michael Keaton was Keatoning it up.
I enjoyed everything
Right.
he did. Yes.
Right. But anytime it like went to Spider-Man fighting somebody, I got totally disconnected.
There's just nothing to
Right.
really watch. I mean,
Right.
there was
And I
nothing
could
else.
watch like those Raimi swinging sequences 1,000 times in a row. I still find them thrilling.
I agree.
Oh yeah. And that first Raimi is really, I mean, it's like 90% teen dramedy,
Yeah.
10% swing scene.
Yeah, it's like
really-
that movie is like a weird like it's like a Douglas Sirk version of a high school movie.
It's great. And
Yeah.
the little montages, when he's imagining what he's doing, what he
I
can
love
do
it.
with all
I
this
think
money. It's just,
those 2 Raimi movies. The
Those-
first 2
yeah.
rule.
they
We gotta do
They
Raimi, man.
do.
We gotta do it because the first one is like has some major issues,
Yes.
but it's so fucking charming and there's so much
And also,
style.
it's setting down a template that is going to be like, the bedrock of so much of these movies that like follow, except they're going to be way watered down. But what you're talking about, those sort of like wild
Right.
comic booky montages,
and it's simultaneously like so much more heightened than the comic book movies
very
we get today.
broad performances, yes,
And like
sort of,
very
like,
emotional
open-hearted
and
performances.
human. Like there are
Yes.
these very human scenes. There's that one in the backyard when Mary Jane, Peter's throwing out the trash.
Yeah, Mary Jane just got yelled
her
at.
dad's
Yeah.
yelling at her, and they have this like conversation where you realize like, oh, they've known each other, but they've never really like talked to this
Yeah.
degree.
Mm.
It's such fucking.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen the first one in a while.
Yeah,
I
this is the-
rewatched the first 2 after seeing Homecoming, which I enjoyed. I thought was fun, but
Yeah, all right,
Oh,
we gotta go.
we gotta go.
No,
What-
it's
what
I'm
else is
almost
in the
done.
top five?
War for the Planet of the Apes is number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay.
let you guess it.
It's War for the Planet.
This is when you realize how badly what I believe number 5 did.
This is my frowny face.
I believe it is Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets.
Opening
other big
that
release.
weekend.
Yeah.
That weekend. Why didn't they open it? And then I suffered as a film critic through August where I was like, what the fuck do I even review this week? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. And like, why not just open it like the ass end of August? It might make some money.
Such a
Yeah.
I wonder if they thought. I wonder if their gamble was they looked at Dunkirk. They looked at the fact that maybe Interstellar was seen as kind of a disappointment, even though it wasn't really. But maybe they just thought to themselves, you know what, we're banking on Nolan whiffing.
I guess so.
I think it was hubris. I think like my big thought I had watching Valerian was like,
which is a great movie and one of the best of the year.
I had issues with it, but there's things I love about it.
So good.
We're seeing on a big screen.
100%.
Which is sad
Which
because
is wide open against the little
2 weeks
I know.
later, I was like, I want to see it again. And then it was like, yeah, go on down to Times Square and no other theaters because it's gone.
Yeah. I saw it like Times Square, and it was like there's a 9:10, and that's the only time it's playing today. But I think you look at the marketing of that movie, and they didn't sell the story at all. The marketing was just like, here are the images, because I think the images are so crazy that was the selling point.
Yes.
I agree, but I think like it's hard to sell a movie to people without any sense of like
the pitch in the trailers was like, there's a city of 1,000 planets, and you're like, oh, and they're like, and they gotta save it. Oh, from what? I don't know. Anyway, go see it.
Like
that was all they had for you.
That kind of like James Franco in Spring Breakers, like check out my shit marketing campaign is only going to appeal to a certain kind of nerd.
I just look,
not people who are like, and I also think that like, in a lot of the way that Luc Besson talked about it, I think he felt like the comic had more cachet culturally than it does.
Yeah.
Especially overseas.
In Europe it does,
Right.
obviously. But
Right.
no, I just read this interview with Luc Besson where he was like, it's fine. I'm doing the accent. I have no idea what he sounds like.
Yeah.
I think he's a very nice man. But like the old people will see Dunkirk and the young people will see Valerian. And I was like, what are you fucking smoking? No one's seeing Valerian.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the play. The play isn't we get to share the audience here.
Right. The kids love Dane DeHaan.
I love Valerian. We're going to talk about it one day. I hope.
Yeah,
I think we'll have a lot of fun.
We'll see. I think it'll be a testy episode. I think you'll get very angry.
I'm going to get real mad at you.
Yeah.
Despicable Me 3, Baby Drivers hanging around. That had a great run. The Big Sick, which has had a very nice run this summer. Wonder Woman.
Some good rounds.
Yeah, it's been an okay summer. I think it's been an okay summer. There's been a lot of nice original movies to root for, and then a lot of crap that you just kind of have to ignore.
Yeah, it's I've seen a lot of films I liked. I mean, I actually really liked War for the Planet of the Apes,
Which I didn't like.
Yeah.
We were on opposite poles on that
Yeah.
one. I know you liked that one a lot. Yeah.
but it was. I mean, but that opened the week before Dunkirk,
It did.
right?
And
I mean,
it
too
opened okay and plummeted.
Yeah, it really underperformed.
It actually did underperform, and that was unfortunate as far as I'm concerned. But it was really that also seemed like a bit of a misstep. Like the week before Dunkirk.
Week before Dunkirk, a very bleak movie. Very bleak.
Planet of the Apes is as well. Like they're similarly kind of like brutal.
Yeah, kind of a war movie.
Like big ass.
It is a war.
It's called War of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
And I mean, I actually think that there's quite a bit, like the Venn diagram between the people who are interested in War for the Planet of the Apes and people who are interested in Dunkirk is,
it overlaps.
It overlaps quite a bit.
I agree.
It's especially confusing because of how barren August is.
I know, it's been weird. There's like no movies coming out this week.
But there's also this
apart
weird,
from Tulip Fever.
There's this weird thing that happened this summer that I think is largely positive, where a lot of those civic duty, I guess it's my obligation to go see its sequels and franchises that everyone
Transformers,
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Sure.
There's another
there
big
were a
one
lot
I'm
of
forgetting
mistakes made
where these like series finally started bombing. You know?
Right. Well, I think where it was just like, it's fine. It'll do okay here and really well overseas. And instead it was like, it did terribly here and okay overseas.
Right. And people were like, look, no one likes these movies. They haven't liked the last 3, but we can make make another one. These idiots will go see it. And people started rejecting them.
It's a weird miscalculation on those two fronts.
Yeah, I wrote an article.
Another one I'm forgetting that falls into that.
I wrote an article a couple of years ago that never ran, basically around this idea. It's like, what happens when the franchises start collapsing? I mean, because there is, there's always the expectation that one or two might fail, but which is why each studio has so many of them. But they're really, I got the sense this summer, even though I saw a number of them that were quite good, I really got the sense this summer that it has begun. They are starting to. Even
these structures are collapsing.
I feel like
Fate
Cars 3
Furious.
even fits
Fate of the Furious. Cars 3. Fate of the Furious didn't do as well. Maybe as they hoped.
Well,
it did fine,
but the last two did so well.
Right. Kong Skull Island was a play that was sort of a half-hearted franchise play that didn't quite work. The Mummy obviously was this sort of out of the box franchise where they're like, you guys want to see this, right?
Right. Tom Cruise. Hey, what could possibly go wrong?
All right, we gotta wrap up, but
I think that makes Nolan more and more
it's
powerful.
a good ending
It
for the
keeps
Nolan
on boosting
series, yeah.
his kind of legacy that it's like he's this guy who's still making original movies, and it seemed in defiance of all these franchises that would work in spite of audiences hating them. They would still keep on going.
He cracked the code.
He cracked the code, and now that the franchise model is starting to become less and less reliable, hopefully, I don't know, hopefully it will empower studios to give more people Nolan-type chances, if not that big out of the gate,
Mm-hmm.
Let them go out on a limb, because blank check movies don't exist as much as they used to. It used to be if you made a big superhero movie, that was really successful, and then you got to make your own crazy passion project. And now it's like
The Book of Henry.
Right, But so often now it's like you do the big franchise movie, so then you can get another franchise movie.
You do it so you can get a Star Wars. You can really graduate to the next level of franchise.
Like, you look at Justin Lin, who revived Fast and Furious, and it's like, okay, this guy has a meal ticket now. He could make whatever he wanted. And then for years it was like he's thinking about rebooting Terminator. Like, he was going to direct Genesis, and then he ended up doing the third Star Trek, and now he's going to make a Hot Wheels movie. He almost made a Bourne movie. It's like, shouldn't Justin Lin be able to go into a studio and find a spec script and go I want to make an original action movie for $80 million? Hasn't he earned that position if he has a big enough star in the lead role? Yeah. But it doesn't really happen. And Nolan's kind of the one guy who's calling the bluff of the studio and being like, I made these fucking Batman movies for you. Let me make my movie about the cruelty of time over and over and over again.
Yes.
So that's Christopher Nolan. That's the Christopher Nolan.
We might do a
series.
bonus episode, but not next week.
No.
Because scheduling's been crazy, guys.
Really
but don't
weird.
worry.
Yes.
It's all good. Everything coming out is good.
Yes.
Yes.
Hopefully next time you hear from me, I will be more well rested.
Nah, you're all right.
I'm not.
No,
but
you
it's
never
fine.
you never deserve
Oh,
to.
thank you.
So next week is our episode on The Devil Wears Prada.
Next week we have a special treat for you. It's a one-off special with my 19-year-old sister, Romilly
Correct.
Newman.
Yes.
We talk about her favorite movie of all time, The Devil Wears Prada.
It was a great episode. We've already recorded it.
I think it's really fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then should we debut
Well,
the
we
next?
know Bigelow's next, right? We've announced that.
Well, let's make sure
Let's
we
make it
it
hyper
official.
formal.
Yeah,
Hyper
yeah.
formal. The week after that, you will get The Loveless.
Yeah. You ever seen The Loveless, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
Is it good? I've never seen it.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
been
blockbuster
How do you feel about
episode for us.
Kathryn Bigelow in general?
I like her. I have my hot take, quote unquote, on Kathryn Bigelow is that I'm not a big fan of The Hurt Locker,
Interesting.
but I love K-19. I think that is a masterpiece.
Yeah, that is
I get-
quite a hot take.
Yeah,
That's
K-19
boiling.
and yeah,
That's a
K-19
nuclear
take.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I love her. Zero Dark 30 is incredible.
Yes.
I saw Strange Days again recently, and that movie is. It is hard to believe that movie exists.
That's sort of the bedrock of the blank check argument for Kathryn Bigelow is Strange Days. That is a wacky movie.
It's got cool future drugs.
Yes, it does.
Strange Days, though, it's
Squids.
like if you look at the big studio flops of Oscar of I think 1983 and 1984, which are, I believe, Streets of Fire.
Sure.
And what's the other one? Was it Brain Scan?
Never.
The Christopher Walken one?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Christopher
Yeah.
Walken, Natalie Wood, the movie that Natalie
Right.
Wood was working on when she
That
died.
she died on.
It's
Yeah.
not Brain Scan. That is an Edward Furlong movie. That's why I was confused.
Brainstorm.
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 okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Those two, like, Strange Days is basically those two movies put together.
Smashed together.
And
Wow.
she was involved, sort of involved with Streets of Fire. I think she was the one who suggested Willem Dafoe for the part.
Right.
Interesting.
And James Cameron was apparently had an office next to Walter Hill and Larry Gross. I guess he was working on either Aliens or Terminator while they were working on Streets
Probably
of
the
Fire.
Terminator, I would guess. It's
Yeah.
around the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm convinced that embedded in the DNA of Strange Days is Brainstorm. Our Brainstorm.
Yes, you're right
and
that
Streets of
Bigelow recommended Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
All right.
We'll be talking about that next
Yes,
week?
we'll be talking about that in a couple weeks. We'll be talking about all kinds of things.
Yes. We're gonna keep talking. I promise you that. I'm gonna try to get some sleep in, and then we're gonna keep talking.
Yes.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Check out our Reddit for some real nerdy shit. Thanks to and for Guda for our social media, Joe Bowen and Patrick Reynolds for our artwork, Lee Montgomery for the theme song. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
People can follow you on
Thank you.
Twitter.
Under
Yes.
my name, Bilge Ebiri. and they can read my reviews in the Village Voice.
That's right.
And,
Please do. Good reviews.
Thank you.
I like them. I give your reviews 2 thumbs up.
Oh boy, Griffin, you just embarrass everyone we bring on this show. Yes.
Hey, look, I give your reviews 0 wormy apples, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to pull a Neil Rosen on you.
Yeah. See you guys next week, and finish it up, Griffin. You're the man who finishes the episodes.
Yeah, I do. and as always, is going to Dunkirk is we.
Great. Just what I need.
I don't know. Whatever. I don't.
Great. That was great. I'm very happy.